So I remembered the whole deal with that goblin merchant. Some lord beat the crap out of him after getting scammed, and the goblin begged for mercy with a sheepskin map. But that idiot lord was like, "Nah, you're still lying," and kept smacking him around until the goblin coughed up a platinum tier treasure instead. The lord took it and walked away feeling like a genius. Spoiler, he was not a genius. Later he realized the map was the real prize all along. Classic case of, I had diamonds and chose the shiny rock. And by the time he went back to find the goblin, poof, gone. Zero trace. The universe said, LOL, no second chances, buddy. But guess what? My rebirth caused a butterfly effect, and my boy Chun Bei stumbled into that exact opportunity instead. And then he just handed me the map, like it was a coupon for bread. I love that guy. I pocketed it without even pretending to be humble. No fake. Oh, I couldn't possibly. Nonsense. Map's mine now. We'll see what treasure it leads to. After that, everyone went home to their territories. My city lord's mansion hit level 5, which sounds cool until you realize building upgrades now take forever. Want tier 6 troops? That'll be like 2 weeks minimum. But honestly, I've been speedrunning this whole game since day 1, so a little cooldown period wouldn't kill me. Plus, I already have my hidden unit flame mages, so tier 6 troops aren't exactly life-changing for me anyway. A week rolled by. Fresh recruits popped up in every camp, and I grabbed absolutely everything, even the tier 1 militia guys. Why? Because I'm sitting on a mountain of resources like a dragon with a hoarding problem. If I run out, I'll just buy more. Money printer go BRRR. That whole week, I basically did 3 things on repeat. Dungeons, grinding wild monsters, building stuff. Riveting lifestyle. Artoria hit level 33, Kalen climbed to 30. But leveling wasn't even my main goal. I needed bodies. Well, skeleton bodies. After the Green Dragon Lair disaster, my skeleton army was basically extinct. Rest in pieces, literally. Good news though, after 7 days of aggressive monster recycling, I converted a fresh 1,000 heavy skeleton knights. Now, 1,000 doesn't sound impressive until you do the math. That's 16,000 tier 1 skeletons fused together. Each one of these bad boys rides fast and tanks hits like a brick wall in armor. Chef's kiss. My current army lineup? Absolutely disgusting. 10 tier 9 green dragons, 200 tier 5 flame mages, 1,000 heavy skeleton knights, plus a whole zoo of spearmen, archers, regular knights, dark elf swordsmen, dark elf archers, and dark elf assassins. Even my trash units could solo most lords out there. I'm basically a walking war crime. Then my communicator beeped. It was Li Bingqiu. Boss, you interested in a wild boss? Now that got my attention. Li Bingqiu had been busy building me a 5-man scouting squad, all hand-picked veterans with recon-type heroes. I'm paying them 20,000 a month base salary plus bonuses. Find an uncleared dungeon? Boom, 50,000 bonus. Pretty sweet gig if you ask me. I figured he'd found a new dungeon, but nope, a wild boss. Those things are stupidly rare in Lord's era, and the loot rivals first cleared dungeon rewards. My wallet senses were tingling. What level? I asked, trying to sound cool and not like a kid on Christmas. If it's too low, don't waste my time, Li Bingqiu scoffed. If it was low level, I'd have killed it myself. It's a level 40 platinum boss, Bone Spirit Mage Gulta. Deep inside the skeleton forest, I checked the map. About an hour and a half away. For platinum tier loot, I'd crawl there if I had to. On my way, I actually got there faster than expected, just over an hour. Li Bingqiu was waiting at the forest entrance waving at me like a parking lot attendant. Let's go, I said. No small talk. Boss first, friendship later. He nodded, then dropped the bombshell. We gotta hurry though. I spotted another lord's team heading into the forest. Their squad comp looked like they're gunning for the same boss. Oh great. Competition. Because apparently finding a rare wild boss wasn't exciting enough. Now it's a race for it too. Li Bingqiu was worried about the competition, but honestly, nobody's stealing a boss from me. That's like trying to steal a steak from a lion. Good luck with that. I told her to lead the way, and she absolutely delivered. Girl had this forest memorized like it was her backyard. Less than 30 minutes, and we were deep inside Skeleton Forest. The monsters along the way? Tier 3 skeleton wolves, a few Tier 4 skeleton bears, basically speed bumps. My flame mages didn't even break a sweat. One volley of exploding fireballs, and everything turned into bone dust. Artoria and Kalen didn't even need to lift a finger. They just watched like two queens at a fireworks show. Then Li Bingqiu stopped and pointed ahead. There it is. And there he was, Bone Spirit Mage Gulta. A giant skeleton rocking a staff and a creepy white robe, looking like a wizard who took the dedicate your life to research thing way too literally. This dude got so obsessed with undead magic that he turned himself into a skeleton. The Mage Association kicked him out. Every major city put a bounty on his head. And did he stop? Nope. He just hid in this forest and kept experimenting. Over time, he converted most of the local wildlife into bone creatures, turning the whole place into skeleton forest. Real great neighbor, this guy. I was about to send Artoria to pull the boss when I heard voices coming from behind us. You sure the boss is here? Positive. Saw it this morning while grinding. Nice work. If this goes well, I'll put in a good word for you. Thanks, boss. But it's a level 40 platinum boss. Can we actually handle that? We've got like 1,000 or 2,000 troops combined. A couple hundred tier 4 units. Worst case, we just throw bodies at it until it dies. Won't that wreck our armies though? Stop overthinking. If we score some platinum loot, the big boss will reward us big time. I turned around and saw a squad of 7 or 8 lords marching our way. Leading them was this big scarred dude named Wang Hu, built like a refrigerator with anger issues. His crew spotted us too. Some buzzcut kid nudged Wang Hu and whispered, "Boss, looks like someone beat us here." Wang Hu sized me and Li Bingqiu up, then smirked. So what? It's just 2 people. They can't solo a boss. Then buzzcut caught on real quick. So you mean we should? Obviously. Let these idiots fight the boss first, burn through its health, and then we swoop in and take the kill. Genius, boss. Absolute genius. Wang Hu crossed his arms looking all proud of himself. Of course, if some suckers want to tank for us, why stop them? Meanwhile, Li Bingqiu frowned. Lin Yuan, they don't seem interested in teaming up. Team up? They don't deserve to team up with me. I could see their plan clear as day. Sit back, let me do the work, then steal the kill. Classic vulture strategy. Very original. Truly the peak of tactical innovation. Li Bingqiu looked uneasy. Should I go negotiate? Negotiate? No. Here's the plan. If they make a move, we kill them. Simple. She flinched a little. Fair enough. This was her first PvP situation. But I learned the hard way in my past life. Being nice to enemies is just being cruel to yourself. No mercy, no regrets. Just watch them for me, I said. I'm going to solo the boss. If those clowns try anything, don't hesitate. Hit them immediately. She nodded and moved her troops into a defensive position behind me. Honestly though, I wasn't even slightly worried about Wang Hu's little fan club. If they hadn't been standing there doing nothing yet, I would have already wiped them off the map just for the annoyance factor. As for the level 40 platinum boss, I didn't even need Li Bingqiu's help. Solo time, baby. Just me and a giant skeleton wizard. Casual Monday. Alright, time to throw hands with a giant skeleton wizard. No big deal. Just another day in my absolutely normal life. I sent Artoria charging straight at Bone Spirit Mage Gulta. She raised her holy sword, activated Glory Shield, and blitzed right into his face like a golden missile with anger issues. Before the bony freak could even process what was happening, she unleashed Holy Light triple slash right across his stupid skeleton face. Minus 2,134. Minus 2,014. Minus 2,256. Big, beautiful red damage numbers popping off like fireworks on New Year's Eve. Over 6,000 health gone in one combo. Absolutely gorgeous. I could almost hear the boss crying. Except he doesn't have tear ducts anymore, because, well, skeleton. Speaking of which, let me break down this clown's stats real quick. Level 40 platinum boss, 220,000 health points. Magic attack between 1560 and 2580. Defense at 550. Skills include summoning bone wolves, some big spell called 1,000 soul destruction, a bone arrow rain, and a bone magic shield. Sounds scary on paper, right? Cute. Very cute. His defense was honestly pathetic for a platinum boss. Artoria was carving through his health bar like a hot knife through butter. She wound up for another attack, but old Gulta finally decided to fight back. He started chanting some creepy spell and conjured up a white bone shield right in front of himself, blocking Artoria's next swing. Okay, fair enough. 1 point for the skeleton. But then things got interesting. Gulta started summoning bone wolves. One after another, These Tier 4 skeletal beasts came crawling out of nowhere, lunging at Artoria with their jaws snapping. Within about 15 seconds, there were over 100 of them surrounding the battlefield. I'll give the old bag of bones some credit. For a dead guy, he had moves. Did I panic? Absolutely not. Not even a little. I didn't even blink. Heavy skeleton knights. Charge. Crush them all. 1,000 heavy skeleton knights surged forward like a tidal wave of armored death. These are Tier 5 units we're talking about. Attack power, defense, speed, all top tier. Those bone wolves might as well have been made of wet cardboard. My knights were stomping through them like they were stepping on leaves in autumn. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Beautiful music to my ears. Meanwhile, Wang Hu's little peanut gallery was having a collective mental breakdown watching this. Holy crap, is this guy seriously soloing the boss? Is he Ghost Race? I've never seen mounted skeleton soldiers like that in the Ghost faction. Those bone wolves are Tier 4 and his skeletons are swatting them like flies. His hero is insane too. Every combo takes a massive chunk off the boss. I couldn't hear them from where I was standing, but I could practically feel their jaws hitting the floor. Must be tough watching someone operate on a completely different level while you're standing on the sidelines with your little 2,000 troop army, thinking you're hot stuff. Wang Hu, of course, couldn't handle his crew being impressed by someone else. Mr. Scarface had to save his fragile ego. What's the big deal? The boss is just weak. If we were fighting it, we'd do even better, sure, buddy. And I'm secretly a penguin. His buzzcut sidekick immediately agreed, like the professional bootlicker he was. Yeah, totally. This boss is garbage. We should have attacked first. But here's where Wang Hu revealed his true colors. This genius decided the plan was to wait until I knocked the boss below 20% health, then jump me, steal the kill, and murder me for my equipment. Because apparently in Lord's era, killing another Lord guarantees 1 or 2 strategic treasures drop from them. And since Artoria was dealing ridiculous damage, Wang Hu figured I must have top-tier gear worth stealing. Buzzcut got so excited he literally licked his lips. Boss loot has no rules. Whoever grabs it wins. Then this absolute creep added, too bad we can't capture heroes, because that female hero of his, that face, that body, absolute top-tier beauty, disgusting. Truly disgusting. If I'd heard that in real time, I would have skipped the boss entirely and gone straight for his throat. But at that moment, I was busy being efficient. To speed things up, I threw Kalen into the fight too. See, Gulta had 0 magic immunity, which meant Kalen was basically a spellcasting machine gun. Artoria handled the frontline pressure while Kalen just stood back and unloaded an endless stream of magical destruction. The boss's health bar was melting faster than ice cream in July. In everyone else's eyes, a platinum boss is this terrifying, legendary creature that requires massive armies and careful strategy. In my eyes, it was a piñata. I was just waiting for the candy to fall out. Then Gulta hit 20% health and decided to go nuclear. Awaken. The bone spirits beneath the earth. A blood-red skeletal hand punched through the ground. Then a second. Then a third. More and more crimson skeletons started clawing their way out of the dirt like the world's worst zombie movie. These weren't regular skeletons either. They were glowing red, carrying rusty iron swords, and radiating pure evil energy. 200 to 300 of them emerged in total. One of them swung at my heavy skeleton knight and actually cracked his armor open in a single hit, dropping his health by half. Okay, those things hit hard. Very hard. Uncomfortably hard. I did a quick battlefield assessment. Could my troops wipe out all these blood skeletons? Probably. Would it cost me a ton of soldiers? Definitely. So the smart play was obvious. Ignore the minions and focus fire Gulta himself. Kill the summoner. The summons disappear. Basic video game logic. I was already repositioning my forces for the final push when, unbeknownst to me, Wang Hu's eyes lit up like a kid seeing a candy store. He saw the blood skeletons pressuring my army and thought this was his golden opportunity. Kill me while I'm busy, steal the boss, steal my loot, become a legend. That scarred moron actually smiled and said, "Boys, it's time to make our move." Oh, Wang Hu. Sweet, stupid Wang Hu. You have absolutely no idea what you're walking into. Li Bingshu screamed my name just as Wang Hu's crew made their move. Honestly, I already knew they were going to try something. Vultures always swoop in eventually. It's in their nature. The only question was timing. and apparently their timing was, right now. Wang Hu barked orders at his squad like some discount military commander, and all 7 or 8 of them sent their troops rushing toward me. Real brave, attacking a guy while he's busy fighting a boss. Truly the height of honor and sportsmanship. I'd clap for them, but my hands were full with a skeleton wizard problem. Li Bingqiu didn't even flinch though. She immediately sent her hero, Rose Swordsman Kylan, charging straight into the enemy formation with her troops right behind. The message was crystal clear. You want Lin Yuan? Get through me first. I gotta say, I was impressed. That girl had guts made of titanium. The problem was numbers. Wang Hu had 7 or 8 lords on his side, which meant way more troops than Li Bingqiu could handle alone. She knew it too. Her whole strategy was basically, hold the line and pray Lin Yuan finishes fast. Not the most sophisticated plan in the world, but sometimes simple works. Kylan clashed with some demon hero that had goat horns growing out of his head, Azazel or something. Apparently Wang Hu had spent hundreds of thousands to pull this A-rank hero from the gacha, and the guy was pretty proud of his horned goat boy. Too bad for him. Kylan had 2 platinum-tier strategic treasures equipped from our Green Dragon Lair adventure, and she was absolutely mopping the floor with Goat Demon. Just straight up bullying him. Wang Hu squinted at the fight with his scarred face all scrunched up. S-rank hero, he muttered, trying to figure out why his precious Azazel was getting spanked. Then he shook his head. No, an S-rank would dominate even harder. It must be the equipment. She's got top-tier treasures, and that's when I saw the greed in his eyes double. This man looked at Li Bingqiu's hero getting the upper hand, and instead of thinking, maybe we should retreat, he thought, ooh, more loot to steal. Incredible. The audacity was almost artistic. Wang Hu had the nerve to shout at Li Bingqiu, hey girl, hand over 2 platinum treasures, and I'll let you both go. Otherwise we'll wipe your army down to 0, and you can start over from scratch. He was actually trying to rob her. Mid-battle, with a straight face. Like some kind of medieval mugger with delusions of grandeur. Li Bingqiu looked at him with eyes cold enough to freeze lava. Are you dreaming? People as shameless as you shouldn't even exist in this world. That's my employee right there. No discounts, no negotiations, just pure verbal destruction. Wang Hu's face twisted. Fine, you chose death. Boys, wipe her army clean. And that's when I showed up. See, here's the thing these clowns didn't understand about me. While they were busy scheming and trash-talking and counting my boss's remaining health percentage, I was busy being extremely efficient. They thought Gulta still had 20% health left. They thought I'd be stuck fighting for several more minutes. What they forgot to account for was that I had 200 flame mages who could delete anything without magic immunity in approximately 0 seconds. The moment I decided to end Gulta, it was over. We're talking less than 30 seconds. Maybe less than that. The math was simple. 200 flame mages casting simultaneously equals 1 very dead skeleton wizard. So when I casually strolled out from behind Li Bingqiu, every single person in Wang Hu's squad looked like they'd just seen a ghost. Eyes wide, jaws dropped, brains short-circuiting. The confusion on their faces was genuinely delicious. I wish I could have taken a screenshot and framed it. Wipe out your people, I said, keeping my voice perfectly calm. Did anyone ask for my permission? They couldn't process it. 1 minute ago, I was locked in combat with a platinum boss. Now I was standing here looking bored. Their little hamster wheel brains were spinning so hard I could almost smell the smoke. But I wasn't here for conversation. I sent my heavy skeleton knights charging straight into their lines. 1,000 Tier 5 killing machines against their sad collection of Tier 4 troops. It was like sending a bowling ball into a display of wine glasses. One of their Tier 4 hellhounds got impaled by a skeleton knight's lance and launched into the air like a kebab. Then 3 more lances punched through it simultaneously. That dog went from scary hellbeast to pincushion in about half a second. Wang Hu clenched his fists and tried to rally his boys. Don't worry. We have more troops. We'll wear him down. Buzzcut was right there cheerleading. Yeah, soldiers can be replaced. Kill those 2 and their treasures are ours. Charge. Whoever loses the most troops gets first pick of the loot. These idiots were actually hyping each other up to die. It was like watching lemmings giving motivational speeches before running off a cliff. I watched them screaming and charging with this wild look in their eyes, half crazy with greed and desperation, and I couldn't help but smile. A cold smile. The kind of smile that should make smart people run. There's an old saying, I said. An ant trying to shake a tree. You don't even know how small you are. You think numbers are your advantage? Let me show you what happens when you face real power. Numbers mean absolutely nothing. Behind me, 200 flame mages began chanting in unison. Hundreds of exploding fireballs materialized in the air around them, each one glowing with scorching heat, each one a miniature sun of destruction. These were the same flame mages that had just deleted a platinum boss in under 30 seconds. The same hidden tier units that turned everything without fire resistance into ash. Wang Hu's squad had no magic immunity, no fire resistance, no chance. Now, I said quietly, let me show you what real damage looks like. 200 mages released simultaneously. Hundreds of fireballs arced through the sky, blazing trails of orange and red, screaming toward Wang Hu's army like a swarm of angry meteorites. It looked exactly like a meteor shower. A very, very angry meteor shower. 200 flame mages fired at the same time. 200 exploding fireballs slammed down like the sky itself was angry at Wang Hu personally. The explosion was so bright I almost needed sunglasses. When the fire cleared, about a quarter of their entire army was just gone, deleted, erased from existence. Less than 30 seconds. And my side, 0 casualties. Not a scratch, not a bruise, not even a broken fingernail on a single skeleton. The despair on their faces was absolutely priceless. They finally understood the math. To reach my flame mages, they'd have to get past 1,000 heavy skeleton knights first. That's like saying, to eat the cake, simply defeat the army of tanks guarding it. Not happening. Not today, not tomorrow, not in any timeline where physics still works. I looked at Wang Hu and his terrified little crew and gave them one last chance, because I'm generous like that. So what's it gonna be? You disband your troops yourselves? Or do I do it for you? Because I promise you, my way involves a lot more screaming. Wang Hu's face went through about 7 different emotions in 2 seconds. Fear, anger, denial, more fear. Then finally he landed on the classic desperate move, name-dropping. Kid, don't push it, he growled, trying to sound tough while his army was literally on fire behind him. Let me go today, and we can be friends. But if you don't, the Lin Corporation will hunt you to the ends of the earth. I raised an eyebrow. You're with the Lin Corporation? The second he saw that I recognized the name. This idiot puffed his chest back up like a rooster who just remembered he has feathers. That's right. My boss is Lin Tianke himself, the man who runs the Lin Corporation. Now you understand you can't afford to mess with me. Oh, this was rich. This was comedy gold. I almost laughed out loud. See, here's the thing Wang Hu didn't know. The Lin Corporation? That's MY family's company. Lin Tianke is running it right now, sure, but only because I sold my shares. If I hadn't, I'd be the biggest shareholder, the actual heir, the real boss. Lin Tianke would be pouring me tea and calling me, sir, if I walked into a board meeting. This clown was threatening me with my own family name. That's like a chihuahua barking at a wolf and saying, you better watch out, my owner has a really big dog. Li Bingchu's face was absolutely priceless. She knew exactly who I was, so watching Wang Hu try to intimidate me with the Lin Corporation was like watching someone try to scare a fish by threatening to throw it in water. She looked like she was biting the inside of her cheek, trying not to burst out laughing. Wang Hu stood there all smug, thinking he'd played his ultimate card, thinking I was trembling in my boots, thinking he'd won. Then I opened my mouth. Funny, last time I checked, I'm not dead yet. So how exactly does Lin Tianke get to represent the Lin Corporation? Wang Hu blinked, then blinked again. Then the color drained from his scarred face as his brain slowly, painfully connected the dots. He didn't know exactly who I was, but he was smart enough to realize that anyone who could say those words with that kind of confidence meant one thing. He had just picked a fight with someone who outranked his boss. He kicked a steel wall thinking it was cardboard. I didn't give him time to apologize. Didn't give him time to beg. Didn't give him time to do anything. Kill them all. 1,000 heavy skeleton knights charged. 200 flame mages launched another volley of fireballs. Wang Hu's remaining troops lasted about as long as a snowball in a volcano. A few dozen seconds, and every single soldier they had was wiped off the map. The word, battle, feels too generous. This was pest control. Artoria moved so fast she became a blur, appearing in front of Wang Hu before he could even flinch. One swing of her holy sword, and his head separated from his body like it was never really attached in the first place. Clean, efficient, beautiful, in a terrifying sort of way. Kalen handled the rest. Dark magic bullets punched through every remaining lord in the squad simultaneously. They all died with their eyes wide open, still shocked, still not understanding how badly they'd miscalculated. This was probably their first death in the game. Welcome to reality, boys. The respawn screen looks the same for everyone. Each dead lord dropped 1 or 2 strategic treasures. I picked them up and checked, silver and gold tier garbage. Not a single platinum piece among them. Total junk. I'd toss them on the auction house later and maybe make enough to buy lunch. Maybe. They deserved it, Li Bingqiu said coldly. Trying to steal our boss and kill us? Good riddance. Then she reminded me about something important. Oh, you haven't picked up the boss loot yet, right? Almost forgot about the whole reason we came here in the first place. I jogged over to Gultua's remains and started collecting. The wild boss did not disappoint. 2 platinum tier treasures dropped. First was the bone-heavy hammer, a melee weapon. Cool, but useless for me since Artoria uses swords. Giving her a hammer would be like giving a surgeon a baseball bat. Second was the bone spirit robe, a mage equipment piece. Now that was perfect for Kalen. I slapped it on her immediately and watched her stats jump up another notch. My dark elf sorceress was becoming an absolute monster. There was also a special hero recruitment token for an A-rank hero called Skeleton Knight Grin. Decent hero, actually pretty good for ghost faction lords. But A-rank? Please. My standards have evolved way past that. Recruiting him would just waste a hero slot that I'm saving for someone actually worth my time. Sorry, Grin, you're going on the market. I dumped the hero token plus a pile of useless treasures into Li Bingqiu's arms. Sell all this stuff. Market price is fine. But honestly, I'd rather you trade them for special items instead of cash. Money isn't really my problem. She nodded, arms full of loot like a kid who just raided a candy store. Not bad for a day's work. Killed a platinum boss. Wiped out a squad of idiots, got some nice gear for Kalen, and reminded the universe that threatening me with my own family name is probably the dumbest possible strategy anyone could choose. Li Bingqiu nodded and said she understood about trading the loot for special items instead of cash. Good girl. She gets it. Money is just paper. Special items win wars. All right, I said, turning to leave. Boss is dead. Idiots are dead. Let's go home. We started walking out of Skeleton Forest when Li Bingqiu caught up and hit me with the question I knew was coming. Those guys worked for your uncle Lin Tianke, right? Is this going to cause problems for you? I glanced at her. You think my uncle is going to come after me over this? She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. My dad told me your uncle is a very calculating man. I'm worried he'll hold a grudge. I laughed. Couldn't help it. What's so funny? She asked, looking confused. You don't know my uncle at all. Wang Hu and his boys. To Lin Tianke, they're dogs. Replaceable dogs. He won't start a war over a few dead mutts. He'll probably smile at me, apologize personally, and act like we're best friends. I paused, then added the part that mattered. That's what makes him dangerous. He's the kind of man who'll be cracking jokes with you and laughing at your stories 1 second before stabbing you in the heart the next. He either does nothing, or he goes all the way. No middle ground. But you're right about one thing. He absolutely wants me dead. Because as long as I'm alive, he can never fully control the Lin Corporation. Li Bingqiu went quiet after that. She probably thought this was just corporate drama. Uncle versus nephew fighting over stock shares and board seats. Standard rich family soap opera stuff. She had no idea how deep this rabbit hole actually went. See, in my previous life, my uncle didn't just take the company from me. He killed my parents. Murdered them. Made it look clean. Made it look natural. And I was too young and too stupid and too trusting to see it. After they died, Lin Tianke was the only family I had left. He played the caring uncle perfectly. Always there, always supportive, always whispering the right words at the right time. I trusted him completely. I thought he loved me. What a joke. Old Butler Lee tried to warn me back then. Told me to watch my back around my uncle. But I brushed it off. Why would I suspect the man who raised me after my parents died? The man who brought me birthday gifts and patted my shoulder at funerals? He was family. Turns out, he was the reason those funerals happened in the first place. By the time I discovered the truth, it was too late. He'd already set everything in motion. His betrayal hit me like a truck doing 90 on a highway. Pain, regret, rage, despair, every ugly emotion smashed together into one burning ball of hatred that settled right in the center of my chest and never left. I swore that if I ever got another chance, I would destroy him. Completely. Utterly. Not just beat him, erase him. Make him pay for my parents. Make him pay for everything. And then the universe actually gave me that second chance. Reborn. Fresh start. Same fire. That fire hasn't gone out for a single second since I came back. Every decision I make, every troop I recruit, every boss I kill, every alliance I build, it's all fuel for that flame. I haven't made my move against Lin Tianke yet because I'm not stupid enough to rush and unprepared. My uncle is genuinely talented. I hate the man with every fiber of my being, but I can respect his abilities. In my previous life, he used the Lin Corporation's resources and influence to build a massive faction in Lord's era and became one of the most powerful warlords in all of China. Taking down someone like that isn't a one-man job. I can fight 10 enemies at once, sure, but 100? 1,000? Even I have limits. That's exactly why I'm building my own faction. One person's strength has a ceiling, but an organized force with the right people, the right troops, and the right strategy, that ceiling disappears. Li Bingqiu spoke up again. But didn't you sell all your shares in the Lin Corporation? Why would your uncle still target you? It's not that simple, I said. Even without shares, I still have massive influence inside the company. A lot of the senior executives were personally promoted by my father. They're loyal to his memory, which means they're loyal to me. If Lin Tianke takes full control, those people get purged. So naturally, they resist him. They want to prop me up as their figurehead to fight back. For Lin Tianke, the solution is obvious. Either kill me, or turn me into a puppet he can control. Use the emperor to command the court. Basically, when I sold my shares, a lot of those executives probably lost faith in me. They think I gave up. They think I ran away. I shrugged. I don't regret it. The Lin Corporation? It's a relic. A dinosaur standing in a field, not realizing the meteor already hit. This world, the Lord's era, this is the real future. This is where power actually matters. And I'd rather be king here than CEO there. Li Bingqiu stared at me for a long moment after that. I could see something shifting behind her eyes. She wasn't just looking at her boss anymore. She was looking at someone who'd already mapped out the next 10 years while everyone else was still figuring out yesterday. I could practically hear her thinking, yeah, I picked the right side. Meanwhile, back in his territory, Wang Hu was having the worst day of his digital life. He respawned at his revival point looking like someone had force-fed him a lemon wrapped in disappointment. His entire army? Gone. Every soldier, every unit, wiped clean. On top of that, he'd dropped 2 gold-tier strategic treasures that he'd bought from other players for over 100,000 yuan. Real money. Just gone. Poof. Like throwing cash into a bonfire. His communicator buzzed. It was Buzzcut, real name Feng Chong, calling to deliver more bad news in that whiny voice of his. Boss, we got destroyed. All our troops are dead. We lost a bunch of treasures too. I wish we'd never messed with that guy. Wang Hu snapped back. You think you lost a lot? I lost more than all of you combined. Stop crying and start being useful. Then he added the line that proved he'd learned absolutely nothing from this experience. Find out who that guy is. I can't let this go. Feng Chong swallowed hard. Actually, boss, that's why I called. I checked the kill log. The guy who wiped us out? His game ID is Lin Yuan. The Lin Yuan. The one whose name shows up in world announcements every other day. I imagine the silence on the other end of that call was long, heavy, and deeply uncomfortable. Like finding out the random guy you tried to mug in an alley was actually a heavyweight boxing champion who was just out for a walk. Welcome to Consequences, Wang Hu. Population U. Now, I wasn't there for what happened next, but Li Bingqiu's intelligence network is scarily efficient, and let me tell you, piecing together Wang Hu's post-death experience was the funniest thing I'd heard all week. Picture this. Wang Hu respawns at his revival point, still tasting defeat, and his communicator immediately buzzes. It's Buzzcut Feng Chong, calling to deliver the emotional equivalent of pouring salt into a wound and then squeezing lemon on top. Boss, I checked the kill log. The guy who destroyed us? His game ID is Lin Yuan. That Lin Yuan. The one who dominates world announcements like he OWNS the notification system. Apparently the silence that followed was so thick you could spread it on toast. See, my in-game name. Lin Yuan, had become something of a legend by this point. 8 out of 10 players in the entire game knew who I was. World announcements popping up with my name had become as regular as sunrise. First clear this, world first that. I was basically the game's unofficial mascot at this point. Feng Chang completely fell apart after making the connection. Boss, we didn't kick a steel plate. We kicked a titanium plate. No wonder he soloed a level 40 platinum boss like it was a tutorial mob. If I'd known it was Lin Yuan, you couldn't have paid me enough to go near him. Wang Hu, being the emotionally mature leader he is, responded by calling Feng Chang useless and boneless. Real inspirational leadership there. So what if he's Lin Yuan? He disrespected me. He's gonna pay. Feng Chang tried one last time to inject some common sense into the conversation. Boss, I get you're angry, but what exactly are we supposed to do? We threw everything at him, and he swatted us like mosquitoes. His heavy skeleton knights are insane. His flame mages literally carpet-bombed our entire army in one volley. And I'm pretty sure I saw 10 green dragons circling behind him that he didn't even bother using on us. That part cracked me up the most. Feng Chang saw my dragons and was so terrified he couldn't even guess what tier they were. The answer is 9, by the way. Tier 9. But he didn't need to know that. The man was already traumatized enough. Wang Hu, however, had exactly one card left to play, and he played it with the confidence of a man who has never once considered that his plan might backfire. He called my uncle. Lin Tianke picked up with that cold, smooth voice of his. The kind of voice that sounds polite, but makes you feel like you're being measured for a coffin. Wang Hu. What is it? Wang Hu immediately switched personalities. Gone was the tough guy Scarface act. Now he was practically wagging his tail through the communicator. Lin boss. How wonderful to hear your voice. So here's what happened. We found a level 40 platinum boss in Skeleton Forest. My uncle, being the efficient businessman he is, cut straight through the nonsense. Can't handle it? Send me the coordinates. I'll deal with it. Each of you collect 200,000 from accounting. 200,000 per person, just for a boss location. 8 people meant over 1 million yuan total. I'll give my uncle credit. The man throws money around like confetti at a parade. Of course, compared to what a platinum boss drops, 1 million is pocket change. He knew exactly what he was doing. But Wang Hu had to deliver the bad news. Actually, boss, the boss is already dead. There was a small incident. I can only imagine Lin Tiang's internal eye roll. He knew Wang Hu was greedy. He knew something stupid had happened. Go on. Wang Hu started spinning his version of events, which was about as truthful as a politician's campaign promises. The boss was OURS. We found it first, but then these 2 people showed up and stole it right from under us. 2 people stole a boss from 8 of you. My uncle asked, and I guarantee there was a smirk on his face. E8, yes. Interesting. What Wang Hu conveniently left out was that Li Bingchu barely even participated, and I alone had annihilated his entire squad in under 10 minutes. His 2 people robbed us story was already the heavily edited, pride-saving director's cut. Then Wang Hu dropped what he thought was the nuclear bomb. And when I told him I work for the Lin Corporation, for you specifically, he had the audacity to disrespect you. He said the Lin Corporation doesn't belong to you. He basically said you have no right to be in charge. Wang Hu was doing everything he could to make my uncle angry at me. Classic manipulation. Paint the target as a mutual enemy. Get the big dog to fight your battles. If Lin Tianke got mad enough, he'd crush me, and Wang Hu could sit back feeling avenged. Brilliant strategy. Except for one tiny, hilarious, catastrophic detail. Wang Hu started getting excited, sensing blood in the water. I'll find out who he is immediately. Just say the word, boss. With your power, crushing some arrogant nobody would be child's play. We should teach him a lesson he'll never forget. My uncle laughed softly. That quiet, dangerous laugh that means someone is about to have a very bad day. You really do look out for me, Wang Hu. Of course, boss. Your problems are my problems. But tell me, Lin Tianke said, his voice dripping with amusement. Do you actually know who this Lin Yuan is? The temperature of that conversation probably dropped about 30 degrees in 1 second. Who? Who is he? My nephew. Lin Yuan. I would pay real money, serious, actual currency, to have seen Wang Hu's face at that exact moment. The man had just spent 5 minutes trash-talking his boss's nephew to his boss, after getting absolutely destroyed by his boss's nephew. while trying to get his boss to declare war on his boss's nephew. The comedy practically writes itself. Wang Hu wanted my uncle to crush me, not knowing that my uncle and I are already locked in a chess match that spans corporate empires and an entire game world. Our conflict operates on a level Wang Hu's tiny brain can't even begin to comprehend. He walked into a generational family war thinking it was a bar fight. Somewhere out there, Wang Hu was standing very still, holding his communicator, realizing that every single decision he'd made today was catastrophically, irreversibly, magnificently wrong. And me? I was already home, feet up, planning my next move. Some people play checkers. Some people play chess. I'm over here playing the whole board, while guys like Wang Hu are still trying to figure out which piece is theirs. So here's something hilarious I found out later about Wang Hu's phone call with my dear uncle. When Lin Tianke dropped the bomb, that's my nephew, Lin Yuan. Apparently Wang Hu's scalp nearly exploded off his head. The man finally connected the dots between Lin Yuan and wanted to slap himself for being so astronomically stupid. Two names that are practically identical, and it took someone else telling him. Truly a genius of our generation. But my uncle, being the cold-blooded snake he is, didn't care about Wang Hu's little panic attack. He immediately called out the lies. "You're deceiving me," he said, calm as a frozen lake. And Wang Hu folded faster than a cheap lawn chair. Suddenly, all that tough guy energy evaporated, and he was groveling like a puppy who chewed up the couch. "I'm your dog, boss. Why would your dog lie to you?" Actual words this man said about himself. Out loud. To another human being. Voluntarily. Lin Tianke made him retell the whole story, truthfully this time. And Wang Hu spilled everything while sounding like a deflated balloon. After hearing it all, my uncle didn't get angry. Instead, he just said, almost admiringly, "My nephew really isn't simple, is he? See? That's the thing about Lin Tianke. He doesn't waste emotions on pawns. Wang Hu and his crew getting demolished? Irrelevant. People willing to work for my uncle are a dime a dozen. Wang Hu only had access to him because my uncle thought he had some usefulness. After this performance, the man had basically downgraded himself from useful tool to broken hammer. What my uncle actually cared about was me. I'm the only real obstacle between him and total control of the Lin Corporation. If I were just some brainless trust fund kid blowing money on sports cars, he'd probably let me live, toss me a few billion, and let me party myself to death. But I'd gone and done something that scared him. Selling all my shares wasn't the move of an idiot. It was the move of someone repositioning. And my strength in the game confirmed it. I wasn't playing around. My uncle's no fool. He'd already figured out that Lord's era wasn't just a game. The realism, the scale, the depth. This thing could become a second world. Every smart businessman with half a brain was already investing in it. And here was his nephew, dominating world announcements like he owned the place. The man who murdered my parents was getting nervous. Good. Of course, being the two-faced champion he is, my uncle handled the Wang Hu situation with surgical precision. Wang Hu, desperate and pathetic, offered to take care of me on my uncle's behalf. Lin Tianke laughed in his face. "With you lot. You useless bunch?" But Wang Hu, for all his stupidity, caught the subtext. My uncle wanted someone to mess with me. He just couldn't do it himself. Plausible deniability. Can't have the corporate world knowing he's hunting his own nephew. Bad optics. So Lin Tianke played his masterpiece move. "I'll have accounting send you 50 million yuan. After that, you and I have no connection. Whatever happens between you and Lin Yuan is your business. He's still my nephew, after all. 50 million to hire a hitman while pretending to be a loving uncle." The man literally said, "He's my nephew," in the same breath as funding an operation against me. That level of hypocrisy should be in a museum somewhere. A whole exhibit. The Art of Being a Complete Sociopath, a Lin Tianke retrospective. Wang Hu understood perfectly. Take the money, target me, limit my growth. But if anything goes sideways, Lin Tianke was never involved. Classic mob boss maneuver wrapped in corporate gift paper. And Wang Hu took the deal. Of course he did. The man had two choices. Take 50 million and come after me, or take 50 million and do nothing, which would earn him my uncle's fury. Not exactly a difficult calculation, even for someone with his limited brain capacity. Plus, the idiot already wanted revenge anyway. Now he had funding for it. Adorable. Truly adorable. A dog with a bigger leash and a fancier collar, still thinking he's a wolf. But while all this backstage drama was happening, I was busy making discoveries of my own. After the battle ended, I didn't leave right away. Li Bingchu looked at me confused. Aren't we going? I ignored her. Something was bugging me. I kept scanning the area until my eyes landed on the Bone Spirit Mage's corpse. Now, normally boss corpses disappear after 10 minutes. Standard game mechanic. Loot drops, body fades, move on. But Gultoa's skeleton was still lying there, solid as ever, like it had absolutely no intention of going anywhere. That's weird. That's very weird. In gaming, weird usually means valuable. Li Bingchu was still trying to figure out what I was doing when I walked up to the corpse, raised my foot, and stomped directly on the Bone Spirit Mage's skull. Crack. The skull shattered into pieces like a porcelain vase at a bull convention. And there, rolling out from the bone fragments like a hidden Easter egg, was a bone-white crystal. Irregular shape, strange glow, clearly not part of the normal loot table. Everyone else would have just grabbed the regular drops and left. They'd walk right past the corpse without a second thought. But I'm not everyone else. I've lived this life before. I know that in Lord's era, the real treasures aren't always in the loot window. Sometimes they're hiding inside the boss's actual skull, waiting for someone smart enough or paranoid enough to check. Li Bingchu stared at me with her mouth slightly open, probably wondering if I was some kind of psychic or just really enjoyed stomping on dead things. Little bit of both, honestly. Li Bingchu stared at the bone-white crystal like I'd just pulled a rabbit out of a hat. What I asked that? I picked it up, totally calm. Nothing special. Just an item that unlocks a hidden quest line. Hidden quest line? How do you know that? Did you forget I'm a reborn person? She went quiet for a second, then followed me as I started walking deeper into the forest. But the girl couldn't keep her mouth shut for long. You're really reborn? Like, for real? I gave her a look. I'm not repeating myself. Believe it or don't. Okay, but if you knew this crystal was here, why didn't you come to Skeleton Forest earlier? Because I forgot. That's the most brutally honest answer I've ever heard. Look, I'm reborn, not a walking encyclopedia. I lived an entire lifetime. I can't remember every single hidden quest from the early game. It was only when I noticed Gultoa's corpse wasn't disappearing that the memory came flooding back. The crystal in his skull was the key. Without seeing that trigger, the information was just sitting in a dusty corner of my brain collecting cobwebs. Li Bingchu, however, had apparently decided this was Q&A time. So if you're reborn, what was I like in your past life? I bet I was pretty successful, right? Not even close. You got wiped out multiple times. Eventually, you came crying and begging me to take you in. That I think you're lying. I'm telling the truth. Say Chinese people don't lie to Chinese people then. HA. You are lying. Fine, I lied. The truth is, I didn't take you in. I just watched while they wiped you out. Excuse me? Yeah, I'm kind of terrible. But it's fun. She recovered quickly, though, flipping her hair with that annoyingly confident smile. I figured it out. In your past life, you were obviously madly in love with me. You were one of my many admirers, throwing yourself at my feet, but I rejected you. So now that you're reborn, the first thing you did was find me and make yourself my boss, just so you could boss me around and get revenge. For your broken heart, I looked at her. With that imagination, you should write novels. I'm right though, aren't I? She grinned like she'd just solved the world's greatest mystery. Before she could spiral further into her delusions of grandeur, I cut her off. We're here. She turned around and immediately stumbled backward. Couldn't blame her. Spread out in front of us was a desolate graveyard. Dozens of tombstones jutting out of the earth at random angles. Some crooked, some cracked, all creepy. The vibe was very much, turn around and never come back. To her credit, Li Bingchu handled it better than most people would. One startled step back, a deep breath, and she was fine. What'd I ask this place? I had no idea Skeleton Forest had a graveyard hidden inside it. I didn't answer. I was too busy scanning tombstones. Somewhere in this mess was the one I needed. Li Bingchu didn't ask questions, just followed behind me like a slightly nervous shadow. 5 or 6 minutes of searching later, I found it. One tombstone with no name, no inscription, no writing at all. Just a single irregular groove carved into its surface. Li Bingchu's eyes bounced between the groove and the crystal in my hand. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Before she could finish her thought, I slotted the bone-white crystal directly into the groove. Perfect fit, like a key into a lock. A deep rumbling sound shook the ground. The tombstone began sinking into the earth. Cold wind whipped through the graveyard from every direction, the kind of wind that makes your skin crawl and your survival instincts scream, "Leave immediately." Li Bingchu pressed closer to me and swallowed hard. "What's happening? What do you think is happening?" "Hidden questline activated. Get ready to fight." I ordered Artoria and Kalen to take defensive positions and put every troop on combat alert. Good thing I did, because about 3 seconds later, the dirt around us started moving. Skeletal hands burst through the soil, then arms, then entire skeletons clawing their way out of their graves like the worst surprise party in history. One after another, dozens of undead warriors pulled themselves free and turned toward us with empty eye sockets that somehow still radiated murder. These were not your basic trash mob skeletons. Some carried dual swords. Others gripped massive battle axes. A few were wearing full sets of black armor that looked brand new despite the bodies inside being completely rotted away. Whatever these things were, they were elite tier at minimum. Artoria didn't wait for further instructions. "Protect the Lord," she charged forward, holy sword blazing with white light, and unleashed her signature holy light triple slash on the nearest skeleton. The skeleton raised a giant rusty shield and blocked it. Artoria's attack, the same combo that had been chunking a platinum boss for 6,000 damage per rotation, only shaved off about 10% of this skeleton's health bar. One skeleton, and there were dozens more just like it crawling out of the ground around us. Li Bingchu's eyes went wide. These skeletons are not normal. Even if they're not full bosses, they're elite class at minimum. Obviously, I said. According to the lore, everyone buried here was an adventurer killed by the Bone Spirit Mage. After murdering them, he used their corpses for necromancy experiments. They were all failures technically, but even failed experiments turned into incredibly powerful undead creatures. Having near-boss level stats isn't surprising when your creator was a platinum-grade mad scientist who spent decades perfecting corpse magic. He buried them here as guardians. The moment someone triggers the mechanism, they wake up and attack everything that moves. No friends, no mercy, no off switch. Li Bingchu looked at the army of elite skeletons surrounding us, then looked at me. "So your plan was to walk into a graveyard, wake up an army of superpowered undead, and fight them all? Yes, cool. Love working for you. Really great job. 5 stars. I appreciated the sarcasm. It meant she wasn't too scared to think straight. We were going to need clear heads for this one, because these bony boys were absolutely no joke, and the hidden questline reward waiting at the end of this fight was worth every single swing. Li Bingchu asked if I could handle these elite skeletons. I smiled. If I can't handle them, nobody can. Bold words? Sure. But I had 200 flame mages ready to back them up. All 200 fired simultaneously at the shield skeleton that had just tanked Artoria's combo. 200 exploding fireballs slamming into one target. Didn't matter how beefy his defense was. The dude evaporated into bone confetti. Problem solved. Next target, please. Except the graveyard had other plans. A black blur shot out of nowhere and decapitated one of my flame mages before I even registered what happened. When it slowed down for half a second, I finally got a look. A skeleton wielding twin daggers, moving like smoke with murder on its mind. A skeleton assassin. My absolute worst nightmare matchup. Here's the thing about flame mages. Their damage output is absolutely disgusting. But their defense? Paper. Wet paper. Wet paper in a hurricane. One solid hit, and they're done. And this assassin was fast. By the time my mages started chanting a spell, the thing had already zipped to the other side of the battlefield. You can't kill what you can't aim at. If I ignored this problem, my entire flame mage squad would be picked apart one by one. And unlike my heavy skeleton knights, who are basically free since I can convert battlefield corpses into new ones, flame mages only refresh once a week from the Mage Association. Every dead flame mage was a genuine loss that hurt my soul. So I adapted. Fast. All flame mages spread out. Every mage gets 2 heavy skeleton knights as bodyguards. Simple tactic, but effective. Now the assassin couldn't just dive in for a free kill. It had to deal with armored bodyguards first, taking damage every time it tried something. The skeleton didn't care about dying though. These undead fought like machines with zero survival instinct. just pure relentless aggression. 2 to 3 minutes of chaos later, the assassin had killed about a dozen of my flame mages despite the bodyguard setup, and it still had over half its health. At this rate, I'd lose 30 or 40 mages before it went down. That stung. It also exposed a gap in my army composition. I had zero answer for fast assassin types. If I'd picked frost mages instead of flame mages, the slowing effects would have turned any assassin into a sitting duck. But every unit has trade-offs, and I don't regret choosing raw firepower. You can't have everything. Then Artoria finally finished mopping up whatever she'd been dealing with and came to the rescue. The assassin lunged for another mage, and Artoria raised her sword and cast Holy Binding. Golden light wrapped around the skeleton like divine handcuffs, locking it completely in place. Every flame mage in range immediately unloaded. Dozens of fireballs converged on one frozen target. The assassin's health bar, still over half full 1 second ago, hit absolute zero before you could blink. Didn't even last a full second under concentrated fire. That's the beauty of crowd control plus burst damage. Lock them down, blow them up, move on. With the assassin gone, cleanup was straightforward. Heavy skeleton knights tanked at the front while flame mages systematically deleted everything one target at a time. I lost a decent chunk of skeleton knights in the process, but those are recyclable, so I genuinely did not care. The last elite skeleton crumbled into bone dust, and Li Bingshu exhaled. Is it over? Nope. Right on cue, every bone fragment on the battlefield started vibrating, then flying. Hundreds of pieces of skeleton rocketing through the air toward a single point, slamming together, stacking, fusing, building something enormous. The fragments assembled themselves into a towering monstrosity that stood 6 or 7 meters tall. A bone giant made from the combined remains of every elite skeleton we'd just killed. Li Bingshu's jaw dropped. Can't blame her. The stats appeared in front of us, and they were absolutely ridiculous. Bone giant. Platinum boss. Level 45. 350,000 HP. Defense over 1,000. Skills including Bone Smash, Death Impact, and Soul Hammer. 5 levels higher than Gulta with nearly double the health pool. The description basically said, this thing will crush you and throw your corpse parts in every direction. Charming. I didn't hesitate. Heavy skeleton knights. Charge. My knights surged forward on their bone horses, looking intimidating as always. But next to a 7-meter-tall bone colossus, they looked like action figures attacking a building. The size difference was genuinely comical. The bone giant opened its mouth and let out a roar that sounded like thunder mixed with a garbage disposal. You cannot stop me. Very dramatic. Then it swung its massive axe in a horizontal arc. My charging skeleton knights hadn't even reached melee range yet when the axe hit them. It didn't just kill them, it launched them. Armored 5-tier heavy cavalry units sent flying through the air like toys, shattering into pieces on impact. One swing, multiple instant kills. Against heavy armor units. Li Bingshu watched my elite knights get swatted away like insects, and I could see they were screwed, thought forming behind her eyes. Was I worried? Okay, maybe a tiny bit. This thing was 5 levels above the last platinum boss, and it hit like a freight train on steroids. My skeleton knights, the same units that had steamrolled everything up to this point, were being treated like paper dolls. The bone giant was in a completely different weight class. But here's what this oversized bone tower didn't realize. My skeleton knights weren't the main course. They were the appetizer. The distraction. The guys whose entire job was to stand in front and absorb punishment, while 200 flame mages and one extremely angry dark elf sorceress prepared to ruin his entire afternoon. Big targets are easy targets. And this clown was the biggest target I'd ever seen. Good luck dodging 200 fireballs when you're literally the size of a house. Let's dance, Bone Boy. My skeleton knights got swatted away like flies, and I didn't even flinch. People probably thought I was insane, but the truth was simple. Those knights were never meant to kill the bone giant. They were the bait, the distraction. Their entire purpose in life was to stand in front of a 7-meter bone monster and be annoying long enough for my flame mages to do what they do best. And oh, did they deliver? Over 100 exploding fireballs screamed through the air and slammed into the bone giant all at once. Damage numbers popped off like a slot machine having a seizure. 389, 374, 286, and in one single volley, We shaved off 40,000 health. The giant's HP bar visibly shrank. 40,000 in one round. Math doesn't lie, and the math said this oversized skeleton was on borrowed time. The bone giant did not appreciate that. It looked up at my mages with those creepy soul fire eyes blazing and screamed something about humans being damned. Very original. Then it pulled out a move I wasn't expecting. A ghostly green hammer materialized in the sky and slammed down with a sound like a church bell getting punched. Every single one of my troops froze. All of them. Stunned. 10 full seconds of force paralysis. Soul hammer. No damage, but a 10-second stun on my entire army. That's an eternity in combat. The bone giant immediately started swinging its axe through my helpless skeleton knights like it was clearing weeds, smashing through them while charging straight toward my defenseless flame mages. This was bad. This was genuinely bad. Then Li Bingqiu did something that actually impressed me. Without hesitation, she threw her own troops directly into the giant's path. 4th-tier knights charging a level 45 platinum boss. Basically a suicide mission, but it bought precious seconds. She didn't wait for instructions. She just saw the gap and filled it. Didn't expect you to be useful, I said. She lifted her chin like a princess accepting a compliment from a peasant. Obviously. I'm very smart, you know. A few seconds later the stun wore off, and my army snapped back online. Skeleton knights swarmed the giant again. Flame mages resumed their bombardment. The bone giant thrashed and raged, but couldn't break free from the wall of armored skeletons surrounding it. Its health melted like butter on a hot stove. 350,000. 300. 250. 200. 150. At 100,000, the thing went berserk. Its eye sockets erupted with soul fire, and a wave of black energy exploded outward in every direction. Death impact. Every skeleton knight the energy touched just corroded, rotted apart instantly. Armor, bones, everything, dissolved like sugar in water. Over 100 of my heavy skeleton knights, gone in one pulse. Even I didn't expect it to hit that hard. That one move killed more of my troops than the entire fight with Gulta. Luckily, the giant couldn't spam it. Another wave of skeleton knights rushed in to fill the gap, surrounding the beast again. Endless reinforcements. One of the beautiful perks of having a nearly limitless skeleton army. Li Bingqiu watched another batch of my knights charge fearlessly into the meat grinder and shook her head. Your skeleton soldiers are the most unfair thing I've ever seen. They literally never run out. If I were the boss, I'd be having a mental breakdown right now. That's not unfair. I corrected her. That's called a numerical advantage. Totally different. Same thing with extra steps. While we were chatting, the giant's health dropped below 50,000. Then the flame mages fired one final concentrated volley, and the number hit 0. The massive bone body swayed for a dramatic moment, then crashed to the earth like a felled skyscraper, shaking the ground beneath our feet. I exhaled. That fight actually cost me something. Over 400 heavy skeleton knights dead, my army cut in half. For anyone else, that would be devastating. For me, it was annoying, but recoverable. A few days of grinding, and I'd convert fresh ones from battlefield corpses. The beauty of renewable resources. I walked over to the giant's remains and searched through them, already knowing what I'd find. Nothing. Zip. 0 loot. This boss was a hidden quest-only enemy, and those don't drop gear. Them's the rules. Li Bingqiu was furious. Are you kidding me? A platinum boss, and it doesn't drop a single thing? Not even one lousy treasure? This is a scam. We lost hundreds of soldiers for nothing. A platinum boss too cheap to drop a single hair from its bald skeleton head. I laughed. She was so mad she was practically vibrating. Relax, I said. The hidden questline reward is worth way more than a couple of strategic treasures. She blinked. Wait, the quest is already done. Look over there. I pointed back to where the original tombstone had sunk into the ground. Something was pushing up through the soil, an old coffin, made of dark manhwa wood, slowly rising out of the earth like the world's creepiest delivery package. It broke through the dirt and settled on the surface, ancient and mysterious and practically glowing with. I contained something incredibly valuable, energy. Li Bingqiu's eyes went wide. All her anger about the lootless boss vanished instantly, replaced by pure curiosity. What's inside? One way to find out. I walked up to the coffin and reached for the lid. Li Bingqiu scrambled to catch up. Apparently, she didn't want to miss the unboxing moment. We stood side by side staring at this ancient wooden box that had been buried beneath a cursed graveyard, guarded by dozens of elite undead and a building-sized bone giant, sealed behind a crystal hidden inside a platinum boss's skull. Whatever was in here had better be spectacular, because I'd burned through half my skeleton army, lost over a dozen flame mages, and stomped a dead wizard's head open to get to this point. If it was just another gold-tier sword or something, I was going to personally find whoever designed this quest and have a very aggressive conversation with them. I grabbed the lid. Time to see what all the fuss was about. I popped open the coffin like it was a birthday present, and Li Bingqiu literally held her breath next to me. Inside was a skeleton, but not your average pile of dusty bones. This thing was pristine, pure white like polished jade, not a single crack or blemish anywhere. If skeletons had beauty pageants, this one would have taken home the crown, the sash, and everybody's phone number. Lying next to it was a tattered parchment scroll. I grabbed the scroll, skimmed through it in about 30 seconds, then tossed it to Li Bingqiu like a used napkin. I already knew the gist from my past life, but reading it again was still entertaining in a, wow, this guy was absolutely insane, kind of way. The scroll was basically Bone Spirit Mage Gultua's diary, his final confession to whoever found this place. After hiding in Skeleton Forest, the madman never stopped his research. Every adventurer stupid enough to chase him into the woods ended up dead and converted into experimental subjects. His goal? Creating the perfect bone creature. Not just strong, smart. He wanted a skeleton with human-level intelligence, because in his mind, raw power without a brain was just a fancy beast. And beasts weren't good enough to validate his life's work. The line between genius and lunatic is paper thin, and Gulta was doing backflips across it. He failed over and over. Every skeleton he created was just a mindless killing machine. Strong? Sure. Capable of independent thought? Not even close. He even mashed together a bunch of powerful warriors' bones into the bone giant we'd just fought. His most ambitious Frankenstein project yet, and still couldn't crack the intelligence problem. The thing was a wrecking ball with 0 brain cells. Story of my dating life in my previous world, honestly. Then one day, Gulta stumbled across the corpse of some top-tier warrior. Treated it like he'd found the Holy Grail. Poured every rare material he had, every ounce of skill and knowledge accumulated over decades, into refining this single skeleton. He named it Ugsar, literally the name of the god of death from ancient mythology. No pressure or anything. But Ugsar turned out to be empty. No consciousness, no awareness, nothing. Just the most beautiful, powerful skeleton shell ever created, sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Like buying a Ferrari with no engine. That's when Gulta had his eureka moment, or his most unhinged moment, depending on your perspective. What if the skeleton needed a living consciousness transplanted into it? What if he could be that consciousness? His own mind was already stored in a soul crystal inside his skull, thanks to his earlier self-transformation experiment. Theoretically, if he moved that crystal into Ugsar's body, the skeleton would gain intelligence, and he'd get reborn in a vastly superior form. It was brilliant. It was terrifying. It was completely insane. And he chickened out. Couldn't pull the trigger. Too scared of failure. If the transplant didn't work, everything, his research, his sacrifices, his entire existence, would be gone forever. So instead of risking it, he buried Ugsar in this graveyard, set up the bone crystal mechanism as a lock, surrounded it with elite undead guardians, and basically wrote a note saying, "Hey, if I die and someone finds this, maybe they'll have the guts to finish what I started." Classic scientist move. Do all the hard work, then leave the final step for some random stranger because you're too chicken to press the button yourself. Li Bingqiu finished reading and looked genuinely shaken. This guy was a total psychopath. Psychopath and genius, I corrected. He spent his entire life chasing one dream, creating perfect bone life. And he almost got there. I paused for dramatic effect. In fact, he's about to get there right now. I walked over to the tombstone and pried out the bone-white soul crystal, Gultua's actual consciousness, the same crystal I'd stomped out of his skull earlier. Then I carried it to the coffin and gently placed it on Ugsar's forehead. Li Bingqiu's eyes went dinner plate wide. "Wait, you're actually doing it?" The crystal touched the skull and instantly dissolved into hundreds of white threads that burrowed into the bone like roots spreading through soil. The whole coffin started glowing with an eerie pale light. Li Bingchu took a step back, completely lost, no idea what was happening. 20, 30 seconds of silence. Nothing moved. The glow faded. I started to wonder if maybe Gultua's fears had been justified after all. Then the skeleton moved. A soft clicking of bones. Fingers twitching. The jaw shifting slightly. Then, slowly, almost elegantly, the skeleton sat up in its coffin like it was waking from a Sunday afternoon nap. Green soul fire ignited in its eye sockets, burning cold and steady, and those empty eyes locked directly onto me. Human, was it you who awakened me? The voice was deep, hollow, and carried the weight of someone who'd been dead for a very long time and was mildly annoyed about being disturbed. Li Bingchu grabbed my arm so hard, I think she left fingerprints on my bone. I didn't flinch. I just stood there, staring back at the most perfect undead creature ever crafted by the most obsessed necromancer who ever lived. Gulta, you magnificent lunatic. You actually did it. Your dream skeleton is alive. Well, alive, and it's sitting in front of me with glowing green eyes, asking me questions in complete sentences. Not a mindless beast. Not a rampaging monster. A thinking, speaking, conscious being made entirely of bones. And the best part? I'm the one who woke him up. Which means, by every rule of this game world, whatever comes next belongs to me. Sometimes being reborn is just unfair to everyone else. I almost feel guilty. Almost. I looked that skeleton dead in his glowing green eye sockets and said the most alpha thing I've ever said in 2 lifetimes. I woke you up. I gave you life. So from now on, you fight for me. I am your one and only master. Bold? Absolutely. Risky? Maybe a little. But confidence is free, and I had plenty to spare. His soul fire eyes flickered like candles in a storm. For a second I thought he might try to rip my head off. Then the flames calmed down, and he just sat there looking confused. Like a newborn baby. If newborn babies were 7-foot-tall jade-white skeletons sitting in ancient coffins. Who am I? I smiled. I knew he'd ask that. This was the critical moment. The fork in the road between, I get an insanely powerful new hero, and I get murdered by an insanely powerful new hero. Your name is Ugsar, I said, smooth as butter. Named after the god of death from ancient mythology. And you are destined to be the Bone King. Something clicked behind those empty eyes. The confusion melted away like fog in sunlight. And then, to Li Bingchu's absolute shock, this towering skeleton dropped to one knee in front of me. Great master, from this day forward, Ugsar will fight for you. Li Bingchu grabbed my sleeve and whisper screamed, What just happened? You just talked a skeleton into serving you. I leaned over and whispered back the part I'd conveniently left out. This quest has 2 endings. Right now he has Gultua's consciousness, but 0 memories. If I'd let him figure out who he really was, he'd have killed us both. And by the way, this skeleton's true power equals a level 50 diamond boss. Her pupils shrank to pinpoints. A diamond boss. That's several weight classes above the bone giant that had just shredded 400 of my knights. If Ugsar had gone hostile, we'd be decorating the inside of this graveyard permanently. The second ending, I continued casually, is what just happened. Give him a new identity, and he accepts you as his leader. Simple, simple, she hissed. You call gambling between gain ultimate weapon and instant death simple, I mean. When you know the answer, it is simple. But sure, for anyone without future knowledge, this was basically Russian roulette with a skeleton. I could see how that might be stressful. Ugsar's stat panel appeared in front of me and confirmed what I already expected, S-rank hero. His base stats were gorgeous. Attack, defense, strength, agility, intelligence, all perfectly balanced S-rank numbers. The only problem? He was level 1. Level 1. This dude was literally a diamond tier boss 5 minutes ago, and now he's starting from scratch like a tutorial character. The classic, join the good guys and lose 90% of your power, trope. Turn evil and you're unstoppable. Turn good and suddenly you can barely lift a sword. I swear, game designers have the most twisted sense of humor. Whatever. Nothing money can't fix. I opened the auction house and started shopping for hero experience books. Basic ones gave 1,000 XP for 500 gold. Mid-tier ones gave 5,000 XP for 3,000 gold. Premium ones gave 20,000 XP for 18,000 gold each, basically 1 gold per experience point at the high end. Absolutely highway robbery pricing that would make normal lords weep into their empty wallets. I bought 100 premium books without blinking. 1.8 million gold, gone in a single click. Li Bingshu probably felt her soul leave her body watching me spend money like that. But honestly, money is just numbers on a screen. Power is forever. I started feeding the books to Ugsar like he was a baby bird, and I was a mama bird made of cash. Level up notifications exploded across my screen like fireworks. Ding, 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 ding. White light kept flashing over his body as he rocketed from level 1 all the way to level 17. And along the way, he unlocked 3 skills that made my heart do a little happy dance. First skill, Bone Throne. A passive that buffed all skeleton units under his command. 20% boost to attack, defense, attack speed, and movement speed. Oh, and 10% of all skeleton damage converts to true damage, meaning it ignores defense entirely. I read that description 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. 20% to 4 different stats plus true damage conversion? On a passive? That's not a skill, that's a cheat code. This was the skill I'd been hoping for. The whole reason I wanted Ugsar. Every hero has their specialty. Vampire Count Dracula leads vampires. Lich Master Claire leads corpse witches. Zombie Guy Skronk leads zombies. But for skeleton troops? Ugsar was the undisputed king. The only king. Nobody in the entire game could buff skeletons like him. My 1,000 heavy skeleton knights, well, 500-something after that bone giant fight, were about to become absolute nightmares on the battlefield. 20% stronger, 20% tougher, 20% faster, with bonus true damage on every hit. Any lord who thought my skeleton army was scary before was about to have a very rude awakening. Second skill, Bone Magic Blade. A combat skill that let Ugsar coat his weapon in bone energy for massive bonus damage. Cool, practical, violent. Everything I like. Third skill, Summon Bone Giant. Yes, you read that right. The same bone giant that had cost me 400 skeleton knights to kill, Ugsar could just summon one, as a pet, on demand. The boss that almost wiped my army was now a skill in my hero's toolkit. If that isn't the most satisfying power trip in gaming history, I don't know what is. I looked at Ugsar kneeling before me, my new S-rank hero, the Bone King, buffer of all skeletons, summoner of giants, and felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Pure, unfiltered excitement. Not just because he was powerful, but because he completed my army composition perfectly. Artoria for frontline combat, Kalen for magical destruction, and now Ugsar to supercharge my entire undead legion. Li Bingshu stared at me dumping millions into experience books, and then at the increasingly powerful skeleton standing before us. And I could see the exact moment her brain gave up trying to process how unfair my existence was. Welcome to the team, Bone Boy. We've got work to do. Let me explain why Bone Throne is the most broken skill in the entire game, because I don't think people fully appreciate how disgusting this is. In my past life, tons of Ghost Faction lords used what everyone called the Skeleton C strategy. The idea was simple. Skeletons are cheap, easy to make, and you don't cry when they die. Flood the battlefield with thousands of them, and overwhelm your enemies through pure numbers. Ants eating an elephant, basically. And it worked. In the early game, Skeleton C lords were absolute terrors. Then mid-game hit, and the strategy fell apart like wet tissue paper. As troop tiers climbed higher, basic skeletons couldn't even scratch a tier 4 heavy knight's armor. Imagine 10,000 guys punching a tank. Doesn't matter how many fists you throw, if none of them can dent the metal, you're just giving the tank driver free entertainment. Most lords abandoned the Skeleton C and moved on. But a few stubborn geniuses refused to quit. They found heroes and treasures that could buff their skeletons enough to stay relevant. In the right hands, those useless bone soldiers could surround and butcher even dragons. Ugsar was the ultimate version of that concept. Bone Throne didn't just buff skeleton stats by 20% across the board, it gave them true damage. As in, damage that completely ignores defense. A tier 1 skeleton punching a tier 9 dragon would still deal real, unavoidable hurt. Multiply that by thousands of skeletons, and suddenly nothing in the game was safe. Angels, demons, dragons, doesn't matter. Enough skeletons with true damage will kill literally anything. From this moment on, Ugsar was commanding my skeleton army. Him plus the skull of the Bone King treasure? My undead legion just went from very scary to mathematically unstoppable. His other two skills were equally nasty. Bone Magic Blade. This lunatic rips out his own rib and uses it as a sword. Enchants it with bone magic for 35% attack boost, 25% crit rate, 25% crit damage, and anyone he hits gets cursed with a 10% debuff to all stats. He literally weaponizes his own body and curses you for having the audacity to get stabbed. Respect. Then there's Summon Bone Giant. The same nightmare creature that cost me 400 nights to kill? Ugsar can just casually conjure one whenever he feels like it. A boss-tier monster on a leash. My leash. 3 skills, 0 duds. S-rank hero fully deserved. Li Bingchu was standing next to me looking like someone had hit her brain's reset button. Wasn't he level 1 like 30 seconds ago? Yeah. Experience books. Bought 100 premium ones. How much? About 1.8 million. Not that much. She stared at me like I'd just said oxygen wasn't that important. You call 1.8 million not that much? I showed her Ugsar's stats. Level 17, and already nearly matching her Rose, Swordsman Kylan. She took one look and deflated. The gap between S-rank and A-rank heroes was staring her in the face, and it wasn't pretty. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. Congratulations on your 3rd S-rank hero. S-rank isn't everything, I said. What matters is finding heroes that fit your strategy. I could practically hear her internal screaming. But she held it together, probably because she knew I was right. I literally gave away an S-rank recruitment token recently because it didn't fit my build. Most lords would sell a kidney for one, and I tossed it like junk mail. Then I decided to throw her a bone. Pun absolutely intended. Finding this hidden quest was partly thanks to you bringing me here. I might never have remembered it otherwise. Her eyes lit up. Is the boss about to give me a raise? Better than a raise. I know a way to upgrade your hero from A rank to S rank. Interested? The look on her face was priceless. Like I just told her gravity was optional, and she could fly if she wanted. That's actually possible? Of course it was possible. But that's a story for another day. Right now I was standing in a cursed graveyard with a brand new skeleton king kneeling at my feet, a shell-shocked employee beside me, and an army that had just gotten exponentially more dangerous. Not a bad afternoon's work for a guy who only came out here to kill one boss and ended up rewriting the entire power balance of my faction. 3 S-rank heroes. An army with true damage. And my uncle out there somewhere, quietly funding idiots to come after me while pretending to be family. Enjoy the calm while it lasts, Lin Tianke. The Bone King just joined my side, and he's hungry. Before we left the graveyard, I told Li Bingchu something that nearly made her faint from excitement. There's a sword master named Aurelet in Imperial Light City who runs a special trial. Pass it, and your hero goes through 3 days of training that upgrades them from A rank to S rank. Her Rose Swordsman Kylan could go from pretty good to absolutely terrifying with one successful run. Her eyes practically turned into stars. Is it hard? Very. Can Kylan pass it? Absolutely not. Then why are you telling me this? Because I said she can't pass it. Not that there's no way. I handed her a dark potion. Nasty little bottle that gives a hero 50% boost to all stats plus 10% dark damage for 15 minutes. The catch? After it wears off, your hero becomes a wet noodle for 8 straight hours with 70% stat reduction. And if you chug them back to back, the damage becomes permanent. Classic double-edged sword. But for one crucial trial attempt, absolutely worth the risk. She understood immediately. Popped the potion, blitzed through the trial while juiced up, then let Kylan sleep off the hangover for 8 hours. Simple, elegant, slightly reckless. My favorite kind of plan. I also reminded her to start selling dark potions on the market and to track down the location marked on Chun Bei's sheepskin map. Both were time-sensitive. She nodded and hustled off like a woman with 17 things on her to-do list, which she probably was. Then I spent the next several days doing something truly insane. Turning Ugsar from a baby hero into a legitimate powerhouse through the ancient art of throwing money at the problem until it goes away. Every single day, I maxed out hero experience books for all 3 of my S-rank heroes. The daily limit per hero is 100 premium books. I had 3 heroes. That's 300 books per day at 18,000 gold each. Quick math, 5.4 million gold per day. Every single day. At that burn rate, Even 100 million gold would last less than 20 days. I was basically watching my bank account evaporate in real time, but my heroes were leveling up faster than a rocket strapped to another rocket. I prioritized Ugsar since he started the lowest, making him the main hero for dungeon runs and monster grinding, so he'd soak up the lion's share of combat experience on top of the books. Artoria and Kalen still got their daily 100 books each because I believe in equal opportunity wealth destruction. Normal lords struggle to properly develop even one hero. Training 3 simultaneously at maximum speed? That's not a strategy most people can afford. It's a strategy most people can't even dream of affording. But when your biggest real-world asset is a bottomless wallet and zero emotional attachment to money, it's actually pretty straightforward. Swipe, buy, feed, repeat. My financial advisor would be having a heart attack if he could see my spending habits. Good thing he can't. Meanwhile, my dark potions finally hit the auction house, and the market went absolutely feral. I'd set the starting price at 2,000 gold per bottle, which I thought was reasonable. The player base disagreed. They thought it was a steal. Within hours, bidding wars erupted. The price skyrocketed from 2,000 to 5,000 to 8,000 to 10,000 gold per bottle. And it kept climbing. People were fighting over these things like Black Friday shoppers wrestling over the last TV. 2 reasons for the madness. First, supply was still limited. I only had so much inventory built up over the past few days. Second, this game had attracted a lot of wealthy players who'd already figured out that Lord's era wasn't just entertainment. It was the future. Smart money was pouring in from everywhere. And these people didn't blink at dropping tens of thousands of gold on a single potion if it gave them an edge. Eventually, the prices would cool down once I flooded the market with larger batches. Supply and demand, basic economics. But even at normalized prices, the profit margins were absolutely beautiful. 100 million in annual pure profit wasn't a fantasy. It was a conservative estimate. The only problem was that my spending was also scaling at an alarming rate. At 5.4 million gold per day on experience books alone, plus troop costs, equipment, and everything else. Yeah, 100 million per year was starting to feel tight. I was in the bizarre position of being one of the richest players in the game, while simultaneously wondering if I was spending too fast. Rich people problems. The worst kind of problems. Nobody feels sorry for you. But the investment paid dividends that no amount of gold could buy. After days of relentless power leveling, my hero roster looked absolutely disgusting. Artoria had reached level 40, a genuine monster on the battlefield, her holy light skills hitting harder than ever. Kalen climbed to level 37, her dark magic output reaching genuinely frightening levels. And Ugsar, my skeleton king, despite starting at level 1 just days ago, had already blasted his way up to level 31. At that level, his Bone Throne passive was turning my entire skeleton army into an elite fighting force. Every skeleton knight hit harder, moved faster, tanked better, and dealt true damage that ignored enemy defense. 3 S-rank heroes, all climbing toward their peak. An army of buffed skeleton knights with true damage. Flame mages for burst. Green dragons for air superiority. Dark potions generating rivers of gold. A sheepskin map leading to unknown treasure. And somewhere in the background, my uncle funding idiots with 50 million yuan to slow me down. Slow me down? I was accelerating. Every day the gap between me and the rest of the world got wider. Every gold coin I spent came back as power that couldn't be bought at any price. While other lords were carefully budgeting their resources and agonizing over which hero to level first, I was feeding all of mine like a man shoveling coal into 3 separate furnaces simultaneously, watching the flames climb higher and higher. Was it sustainable? Probably not forever. Did I care? Not even slightly. You can always make more money. But time? Time waits for nobody. Not even a reborn man with a grudge and a skeleton army. I finally stopped throwing money at experience books like a drunk guy at a casino. Look, I'm rich, but I'm not stupid rich. Well, I am stupid rich, but even I have limits. Artoria needed several million experience points just to go from level 40 to 41. Spending millions of gold for one level? That's not investing. That's lighting money on fire and calling it a strategy. All 3 heroes were at satisfying levels. Artoria at 40, Kalen at 37, Ugsar at 31, so I decided to let them level up the old-fashioned way. Through violence. Much cheaper. I took a stroll around my territory to check on things. Every recruitment building was maxed out. Spearman camp, archer training ground, mage association, all of them pumping out maximum troops every week. The only bottleneck was my city lord's mansion, which still needed 7 days to hit level 6. Once it did, I could finally build a griffin cliff and start recruiting griffins, one of the few flying units available to the human faction in the early to mid-game. Even better, upgrade the building high enough and regular griffins become royal griffins, which rival tier 7 units in raw stats. But that was all future me's problem. Present me was staring at a construction timer and willing it to go faster with sheer frustration. Then a thought hit me that sobered my mood real quick. 5 days. In 5 days, every human being on Earth gets transported into this game world permanently. Reality gets replaced. Lord's era stops being a game and becomes the only world that matters. Everything changes. The stakes go from lose some digital troops to lose your actual life. I needed to be as prepared as humanly and inhumanly possible before that happened. My communicator buzzed. Li Bingqiu, sounding like she'd just won the lottery. Boss, we found it. Found what? The location on the sheepskin map. The terrain matches perfectly. My brain took a second to catch up. The map Qin Bei gave me. The one from the Goblin Merchant. The one that some lord in my past life kicked himself for decades over missing. My dungeon hunter squad had actually tracked it down. How? I showed the map to all 5 hunters and promised 1,000,000 gold to whoever found the location first. Hope you don't mind me making that call. Mind? Hiring that squad was the single best personnel decision I'd made since starting this game. They'd already found me several uncleared dungeons, and now this. Li Bingqiu was turning into the best employee I'd ever had, and I was including my past life in that assessment. You did great. Come collect 2,000,000 gold. 1,000,000 for the finder, 1,000,000 as your personal bonus. Boss is so generous. Stop kissing up and send me the coordinates. I was antsy for good reason. I had no idea if other copies of this map existed. If someone else found the location first, all of this would be for nothing. Speed was everything. Li Bingqiu asked if she should bring backup. I thought about it and told her to grab Qin Bei and Lin Mingming. I knew those two well enough to trust them, and they could use the field experience. Flowers don't grow in greenhouses. Sometimes you gotta drag people into danger for their own good. 6 hours later, after a marathon march across what felt like half the continent, I arrived at a canyon that looked like God had taken a knife to the earth and carved a maze. Towering cliff walls, winding passages, layers of rock stacked like 1,000,000,000 ancient books piled on top of each other. From above, it probably looked like a giant stone labyrinth. Dramatic, mysterious, and screaming, something valuable is hidden inside me. Li Bingqiu's group was already waiting. Before I could even open my mouth, Qin Bei launched himself at me like a human-shaped golden retriever. Boss, we finally meet again. Since our last parting, my longing for you has been like an unstoppable river, flowing endlessly day and night. 1 day apart feels like 3 years. Having crossed the vast ocean, no other water compares. Can you please act normal for 5 seconds? He grinned sheepishly. Sorry, got emotional. Couldn't contain my genuine feelings. This man quotes ancient love poetry at his male boss in public without a shred of embarrassment. I genuinely don't know if he's the bravest person I know or the weirdest. I noticed his hero had changed. He was now rolling with that S-rank orc chieftain from the hero token I'd given him ages ago. And Li Bingqiu's Rose, Swordsman Kylan? No longer a rank. She was radiating S-rank energy like a completely different person. The dark potion strategy had worked. Kylan passed the Swordmaster's trial and completed the 3-day training. Li Bingqiu had leveled up as a lord in a serious way. Lin Mingming hadn't changed much, but she was still solid support. Li Bingqiu pointed at the canyon stretching before us. This is the exact location marked on the sheepskin map. If this really is a treasure map, whatever we're looking for is somewhere inside that maze. I stared into the canyon's depths. Shadows pooled between the walls like dark water. Wind howled through the narrow passages carrying sounds that could have been echoes or could have been something alive. The place had, extremely dangerous but extremely rewarding, written all over it in invisible ink. Somewhere inside that stone labyrinth was a treasure that a previous life lord regretted losing for the rest of his existence. A treasure so valuable that a goblin merchant used it as his ultimate bargaining chip. A treasure that my rebirth's butterfly effect had redirected straight into my hands through a chain of coincidences that felt almost like destiny. 5 days until the world changed forever. And I was standing at the entrance to a mystery canyon with 3 allies, 3 S-rank heroes, and an army that included dragons, flame mages, and a skeleton king who rips out his own ribs for fun. Let's see what's inside. Let's go, I said, and marched straight into the canyon like I owned the place. Which, if there's treasure inside, I basically would soon. The second we stepped in, cold wind started howling through the passages, and creepy scratching noises echoed from the depths. I threw my arm out to stop everyone. Battle ready. Now, 2 seconds later, dozens of blood-red eyes lit up in the darkness ahead like the world's worst Christmas decorations. Li Bingqiu squinted. Hellhounds? No, wait. Hell Cerberus, the 3-headed upgraded version. Tier 5 equivalent stats. And there were so many of them the pack stretched into darkness like a furry, snarling ocean. Wonderful. Chunbei immediately volunteered himself like the eager golden retriever he is. I got this, boss. His orc chieftain let out a war cry and activated Beast Blood Boil, which turned every orc unit in his army glowing red and absolutely feral. Orcs are already the punch first, think never race, and with that buff they were basically meat-shaped missiles. I had to admit, the kid had real talent. Give him a few more months, and he'd be one of the top orc lords in all of China. Li Bingqiu and Lin Mingming jumped in too. Rose swordsman Kylan carved through 3-headed dogs like a blender through smoothie ingredients. S-rank upgrade was clearly worth every drop of that dark potion. Lin Mingming hung back, doing her support thing, buffing everyone's stats. She knew her role and played it perfectly. No ego, no jealousy, just pure, I make everyone else better, energy. I barely had to lift a finger. Nearly 1,000 Cerberus units got shredded by my 3 companions working together. Li Bingqiu and Chunbei had genuinely become lords who could hold their own. Watching them operate was like seeing your kids graduate. If your kids were military commanders who solved problems by stabbing them. After the battle, Chunbei collected every single Cerberus corpse into a neat pile for me without being asked. This man's bootlicking had evolved into an art form. If I don't start paying you, I said, I'll feel guilty, he grinned. Don't need a salary, boss. I'm permanently attached to your leg and nothing is shaking me off. Creepy? Yes. Loyal? Also yes. I'll take it. I activated the Skull of the Bone King on the Mountain of Corpses. Black magic circles appeared, and 4,000 Tier 1 skeletons marched out. Quick fusion math. That's about 250 fresh heavy skeleton knights. 4-to-1 conversion ratio from Cerberus corpses. Not bad at all. My army was restocking itself mid-dungeon like a self-healing immune system made of bones. We pushed deeper. This canyon is nastier than expected, I warned everyone. Getting the treasure won't be easy. Chunbei puffed up his chest. So what? We just steamroll everything. Li Bingqiu gave him a flat look. Great plan. We'll leave then. You steamroll alone. Call us when you're done. His confidence evaporated instantly. Wait, no, big sis. I was just trying to boost morale. I'm the little brother here. Without you guys, I'm nothing. The speed at which this man switches between brave warrior and whimpering puppy should be studied by scientists. 10 minutes deeper into the canyon, Wave 2 showed up. 700 Inferno demons and 700 Frost demons blocking our path. Li Bingqiu scouted them and grimaced. Inferno demons specialize in damage. Frost demons specialize in crowd control. Together, they're a nightmare combo that multiplies each other's effectiveness exponentially. This wasn't going to be a pushover fight. Then Lin Mingming screamed from behind us. Something's behind us. We all spun around. Crawling along the canyon walls, because of course they could climb walls, they're spiders, were dozens of enormous arachnids with grotesquely swollen abdomens. Something was visibly squirming inside those bellies, which was exactly as horrifying as it sounds. I recognized them immediately from my past life, and my stomach dropped just a little. Demon Spider Queens. Tier 7 hidden units of the demon faction. Not recruitable through normal buildings. You need a special evil spider nest blueprint just to unlock them. Now, here's what makes these things the single most disgusting unit in the entire game. Their personal combat stats? Mediocre. But they continuously produce spider eggs that hatch in seconds into Tier 5 demon spiders. An endless conveyor belt of enemies popping out of a giant spider's belly every few seconds. Already gross, right? But wait, it gets worse. Those baby spiders explode. The moment you try to rush the spider queen directly, her children detonate themselves on your troops like furry, eight-legged grenades. Every lord who's ever fought these things has the same traumatic experience. You charge the queen, babies explode, your army melts. You try to kill babies first, queen makes more. You try to kite, you're stuck in a canyon with nowhere to run. It's a lose-lose-lose situation designed by someone who clearly hated fun. And there were dozens of queens behind us. Shinbei's face scrunched up. When did giant spiders get behind us? I pointed at the canyon walls. They're spiders, genius. Walls are just floors to them. Li Bingqiu bit her lip. So we're trapped. Enemies in front, spider queens behind. Inferno and frost demons ahead. Dozens of Tier 7 spider queens behind. Their babies about to start hatching like a horror movie egg farm. Canyon walls on both sides. No retreat, no flanking, no clever positioning. Just a straight-up sandwich of death with us as the filling. I smiled. Relax. This is nothing I can't handle. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me like I'd just announced the sky was green. But they'd seen enough by now to know that when I say I've got it handled, things tend to work out. Usually violently. Always entertainingly. The spider queen's abdomens pulsed. Eggs were about to drop. The inferno demons ahead started gathering flames. The frost demons began charging ice spells. The canyon walls closed in around us like the jaws of a stone beast. Trapped between fire, ice, and an infinite spider factory. Most people would panic. Most people would pray. Most people would update their wills. Me? I had 200 flame mages, a skeleton king who fights with his own ribs, and a very bad attitude. Let's party. I took command like a general who's done this 1,000 times. Because technically, I have. Told Shinbei to park his orc meatheads in the back since they move like refrigerators on legs and would become sitting ducks in a fight involving ice magic. Told Li Bingqiu to wait on the flank for my signal. Told Lin Mingming to just stand there looking supportive and buff everyone. Classic support main life. Then I sent Ugsar charging straight into the demon army, and my beautiful bone boy did not disappoint. He ripped out his own rib, turned it into a glowing death sword, summoned a bone giant as his personal pet, and led a cavalry charge of heavy skeleton knights directly into 1,400 demons. The man fights with pieces of his own skeleton. That's not just metal, that's literally bone. The frost demons responded by turning the ground into an ice spike nightmare. My skeleton knights got skewered and slowed to a crawl. Then the inferno demons lit everything on fire underneath them. Ice and fire simultaneously. Like the universe couldn't decide how to kill my troops, so it chose both. My knights were getting shredded before they could even reach the enemy. But here's the thing everyone always forgets about me. The skeleton charge was never the real attack. It was the shiny distraction while 400 flame mages. Yes, 400 now. Thank you weekly recruitment. Loaded up behind me like the world's angriest artillery battery. Blow them apart. 400 fireballs screamed across the canyon and turned the demon formation into a barbecue. 200 demons vaporized in one volley. 1/7 of their entire force, gone, along with any semblance of organized defense. Their formation shattered like a dropped plate. I glanced at Li Bingqiu. Now, she didn't need to be told twice. Kylin and her troops knifed into the broken demon lines from the side like a surgical strike. Before the demons could regroup, my flame mages launched volley 2. At that point, it was less of a battle and more of a demolition project. Meanwhile, behind us, the spider queens were having babies. And by having babies, I mean their swollen abdomens literally split open and spider eggs started rolling out like a nightmarish gumball machine. Each egg hatched in seconds into a Tier 5 demon spider that immediately charged at us. Hundreds of them within half a minute. A living carpet of legs and fangs in pure disgust. The worst part? These spiders are suicide bombers. Get close to the queen and her children detonate themselves, spraying toxic green acid that dissolves everything. Armor, bone, pride, will to live. My skeleton knights charged in to hold the line and started popping like bubble wrap as spiders exploded all over them. Acid melted through heavy plate armor like it was wet cardboard. Absolutely revolting. But I'd already planned for this. Time to unleash the Air Force. My 10 Tier 9 green dragons had been chilling in the background this entire adventure like bored celebrities waiting for their scene. I rarely use them because they're irreplaceable. Lose one, and it's gone forever. But this was exactly the scenario they were built for. 10 dragons launched into the sky, soared over the spider horde, and started carpet-bombing the spider queens from above with explosive wind blasts. Each blast hit 2 or 3 queens at once, deleting a third of their health per shot. The queens couldn't do a single thing about it because, and this is the beautiful part, spiders can't fly. Their entire strategy of make babies that explode on your enemies is completely useless against targets floating 50 meters above them. Acid can't splash upward. Baby spiders can't jump that high. The queens just sat there getting bombarded while their entire survival strategy failed catastrophically. It was the hardest counter I'd ever seen, like bringing a flamethrower to a snowball fight. 10 minutes later, both fronts collapsed. Every Inferno demon, dead. Every Frost demon, dead. Every Spider Queen, dead. My total losses? A few hundred skeleton knights, half from the demon battle, half from spider explosions. Recyclable losses. The skeleton army would rebuild itself from today's corpses by tomorrow. Shinbei was already running around collecting bodies before I even asked. Don't worry, boss, I got cleanup duty. Following you is the best. I don't even have to fight. Just sweep up afterwards. Don't get comfortable, I said. When I need you to fight, you fight. Absolutely. Say the word, and I'll charge into hell itself even if every last soldier dies. This man's loyalty is either deeply touching or deeply concerning, and I still can't decide which. Then Li Bingqiu called out from the Spider Queen remains. Lin Yuan, get over here. They dropped something. A building blueprint. I took one look and my brain lit up like a slot machine hitting jackpot. Evil Spider Nest. The exact blueprint needed to recruit Demon Spider Queens. A special building that only works in Demon faction territories, requiring a level 7 City Lord's mansion and an absolutely obscene amount of resources to construct. This thing is worth tens of millions at auction, I said. Li Bingqiu's eyes nearly fell out. Tens of millions? Spider Queens are a Tier 7 hidden unit. Any demon lord with half a brain would mortgage their entire territory to get this blueprint. You can build entire strategies around these things. I tucked the blueprint away carefully. None of us could use it since we weren't demon faction, but some rich demon lord out there was going to make this the most expensive impulse purchase of their career. Their money, my profit. The circle of life continues. Shun Bei finished stacking corpses. I converted another massive batch of skeletons, and we pressed deeper into the canyon. Whatever treasure that goblin merchant had marked on the sheepskin map, it was buried somewhere ahead of us, guarded by increasingly ridiculous waves of demonic defenders. Good. The harder the enemies, the better the reward. That's just how this world works. And if there's one thing I've proven today, it's that no amount of demons, spiders, ice, fire, or exploding baby arachnids is going to stop me from collecting what's mine. We found 2 more building blueprints on the demon corpses, Frost Magic Tower and Flame Magic Tower. Both city defense buildings. Now, most lords at this stage of the game would look at defense blueprints and yawn. Why waste resources fortifying your base when nobody's attacking yet? Makes sense if you don't know what's coming in 5 days. I know what's coming in 5 days. Everyone happily let me keep the blueprints. Shinbei practically gift-wrapped them for me while singing my praises. Li Bingqiu shrugged. Lin Mingming nodded politely. I let them keep the demon materials as compensation, which was honestly still a great deal for them. I got game-changing defensive infrastructure. They got monster parts worth decent money. Everybody wins, but I win more. As usual, we pushed deeper until the canyon split into 3 dark tunnels. Classic adventure game nonsense. Pick a path. 2 are wrong. Good luck. Shinbei looked at me like I was a GPS. Which way, boss? I'm not psychic. But I'll go check. Alone? That's dangerous. For other people, maybe. I pulled out my deceiver's mask and slapped it on. Instantly, my entire body transformed into a frost demon. Scales, horns, the whole terrifying package. Everyone stared at me like I'd just performed actual witchcraft. Shinbei nearly swallowed his own tongue. What the? Boss, since when can you do that? Minor trick. Stay here, don't do anything stupid, and wait for me. I walked into the left tunnel alone, disguised as a random low-tier demon, casually strolling through enemy territory like I was heading to the break room. 15 minutes of walking through increasingly creepy darkness until the path opened into a massive underground valley, easily 3 or 4 football fields wide, with dark red soil that looked like the earth itself was bleeding. But the real show was the walls. Hundreds of caves carved into the surrounding rock, and inside every single one lived some of the ugliest creatures I'd ever seen. Demons called evil ghosts, single horn on top, wolf head, human torso, horse hooves for legs, blood-red eyes, knife-sharp fangs, and barbed tails. Like someone described 6 different nightmares to an artist and said, combine them all, tier 6 units, every single one. I was still cataloging this horror show when a flaming whip cracked the ground inches from my feet, leaving a scorched black mark on the dirt. Low-rank demon. This place is not for the likes of you. A cold voice from above. Something much bigger and much nastier than the evil ghosts was staring down at me, and it was clearly not impressed by my disguise's pay grade. Here I was, standing alone in the middle of a demon stronghold, disguised as the demonic equivalent of an intern, getting yelled at by management. The frost demon disguise got me in, but apparently even hell has restricted areas, and I'd just wandered into the VIP section without a badge. Not exactly how I planned this reconnaissance mission going, but honestly, I've been in worse situations. At least nobody was exploding yet. I looked up and almost swallowed my own tongue. Standing above me was the biggest, scariest demon I'd ever seen. Human-shaped, but with ram horns, blood-red skin, muscles on top of muscles, a flaming whip in one hand, and a necklace made of actual skulls. This guy's interior decorator was clearly Satan himself. I checked his stats, and my stomach did a backflip. Evil God King. Diamond Boss. Level 50. 500,000 HP. Defense at 1250. Skills that included Hell Whipping, Evil Ghost Gate, and Evil God's Blessing. That last one apparently lets him resurrect his dead minions. Oh, and he's surrounded by over 1,000 Tier 6 evil ghosts living in caves carved into the walls like the world's most horrifying apartment complex. This was a whole different league from anything I'd fought before. The Bone Giant had 350,000 HP and nearly wrecked me. This clown had 500,000 plus an army of Tier 6 monsters plus resurrection abilities. My flame mages would need 3 or 4 fireballs just to kill one evil ghost. Multiply that by 1,000 ghosts that can come back from the dead, and suddenly my usual, blast everything with fire, strategy looked about as useful as a water gun at a volcano. I kept my cool, memorized the layout, and backed out slowly. The evil god king watched me leave, but didn't chase. Apparently kicking out a low-ranking demon wasn't worth his time. Lucky me. Back at the fork, everyone gathered around like I was delivering election results. Diamond Boss, I said. Level 50. Plus 1,000 Tier 6 evil ghosts. The collective intake of breath could have created a vacuum. Shinbei looked like someone told him Christmas was canceled forever. Li Bingchu bit her lip. So what do we do? All eyes on me. Somewhere along the way, I'd become the undisputed leader of this group without anyone voting. Democracy died and was replaced by whatever Lin Yuan says goes. Relax. That's only one path. Let me check the other two. This time I made a smarter costume choice. Instead of disguising as a pathetic frost demon that gets yelled at by management, I transformed into the evil god king himself. Full package. Horns, red skin, massive body, flaming whip. If demon society has a hierarchy, I was going straight to the top of the food chain. Shinbei nearly had a stroke. That's the evil god king? You look insane. Looking cool wasn't the point, but I appreciated the fanboy energy. The real logic was simple. Last time I went as a low-rank demon and got treated like a trespasser. This time I'd walk in looking like the boss. Nobody tells the boss to leave. I headed down the right tunnel. 15 minutes of speed walking through darkness until the path opened into another massive cavern. But this one was completely different from the first. Instead of red earth and caves, everything was frozen solid. The ground was covered in thick frost. Icicles hung from the ceiling, and the temperature dropped so hard I could practically feel it through the game interface. The residents here were frost giant demons, Tier 6 units that looked like enormous apes covered in ice armor. Huge curved horns, arms thick as tree trunks, slow-moving but built like walking glaciers. There were hundreds of them, maybe 1,000, all turning their heads to stare at me as I walked in wearing the evil god king's face. Then a voice cut through the frozen air like a blade. Evil God King, who gave you permission to leave your territory? A colossal frost giant carrying a wooden club the size of a telephone pole was stomping toward me. Blue glowing eyes locked onto mine with the kind of pressure that makes your knees want to buckle. Frost Demon King. Diamond Boss. Level 50. 600,000 HP. Defense at 15 freaking 50. Skills including Frost Hell, Frost Strike, and Frost Armor. His description basically said, everything he touches freezes, and his ice skin is harder than steel. Another diamond boss. Another one. This canyon had 2 diamond tier bosses living on opposite ends like the world's worst neighbors in the world's worst homeowners association. And this one was even tankier than the Evil God King. 600,000 health with 1550 defense meant this walking freezer would take approximately forever to kill. His attack was slightly lower, but who cares when your defense is that obscene? My flame mages would be doing chip damage. My skeleton knights would bounce off him like ping-pong balls hitting a concrete wall. Also, and this was the truly hilarious part, he clearly knew the Evil God King. They apparently had some kind of territorial arrangement where neither one was allowed in the other's zone, which meant my brilliant disguise had just backfired spectacularly. I dressed up as one boss and walked directly into the other boss's living room. That's like putting on a police uniform and walking into a rival gang's headquarters. Technically impressive, strategically questionable. The Frost Demon King was staring me down, waiting for the Evil God King to explain why he'd crossed into frozen territory. I had about 3 seconds to figure out how to not die. 2 paths explored, 2 diamond bosses found, 1 more tunnel left to check. And somehow, the middle path, the one I'd saved for last, was starting to feel like either the answer to all my problems or the entrance to something even more terrifying than what I'd already seen. This canyon was supposed to contain treasure. Instead, it contained 2 endgame bosses, thousands of elite demons, and enough nightmare fuel to keep a therapist employed for decades. Whatever the goblin merchant had hidden here, it had better be worth more than a small country, because the bill for retrieving it was getting astronomically expensive. So there I was, dressed as the Evil God King, standing in a frozen hellscape, face to face with a second diamond boss who apparently knew the guy I was pretending to be. On a personal level, like they were co-workers. The Frost Demon King glared at me with those icy blue eyes and basically said, "Why aren't you at your post guarding that key?" And my brain immediately went into overdrive because he'd just accidentally dropped 2 massive pieces of intel. There's a key involved, and they both answer to someone called the Demon God. Now a normal person would panic. A smart person would leave. I chose option 3. Keep lying and see how far I could push it. I deepened my voice, channeled my inner dramatic villain, and shot back with, "Why can't I come here? You got a problem with me visiting?" Classic deflection. When you don't know what's going on, act offended that anyone would question you. Works in corporate meetings, apparently works on diamond bosses too. The Frost Demon King grumbled about me abandoning my post, and how the Demon God would punish me when he returned. Beautiful. More free information. I filed that away and decided to go for the absolute craziest bluff of my 2 lifetimes. The Demon God sent me, I said, cool as ice, which felt appropriate given the setting. He wants me to collect your key. This was pure improvisation built on about 30 seconds of logical deduction. Both bosses guard separate paths. Both serve the same master. Both apparently have keys. Whatever those keys unlock is probably behind door number 3. The middle tunnel I hadn't explored yet. So I figured, why fight a 600,000 HP tank monster when I could just ask him to hand over the goods? The silence that followed was the longest 5 seconds of my life. I was already mentally mapping my escape route. Then the Frost Demon King frowned and said, "You want me to give you my key?" He had a key. My guess was right. I wanted to fist pump so badly, but that would have been slightly out of character for the Evil God King. So I kept my poker face locked tight. The Demon God commanded it. "Are you going to disobey him?" More silence. More sweating on my end. Then the giant ice ape actually turned around and walked into a cave to go get it. He was actually doing it. I was scamming a diamond boss out of a quest item using nothing but confidence and a magic mask. This was either the greatest con in gaming history or the dumbest thing I'd ever attempted. Possibly both. While he was gone, I seriously considered running. Grab whatever intel I had and bolt. But greed won out. Story of every heist movie ever. Because if this worked, I'd have a key without spending a single soldier. No battle, no casualties, no fireballs required. Just pure, shameless deception. The Frost Demon King came back holding a beautiful ice blue key. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might crack my disguise. He held it out, but then, he had to go and develop a brain cell at the worst possible moment. Why does the demon god want my key back? Ask him yourself. I just follow orders. We can't contact the demon god. He always contacts us. You know that. My internal monologue at that exact moment was approximately, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. I'd slipped up. Anyone who actually knew the demon god would know you can't just ring him up for a chat. I'd basically told someone to call a number that doesn't exist. The suspicion in those frozen eyes went from mild curiosity to something's very wrong here in about half a second. I doubled down because what else could I do? So you're refusing the demon god's order. That bought me another few seconds of hesitation. Loyalty is a powerful thing, even for ice monsters. But then Frosty hit me with the killshot question. Show me your key. The one you're supposed to be guarding. You carry it on you, right? My internal response cannot be printed in any family-friendly publication. Show him a key I don't have, from a territory I don't control, given to a person I'm not? Sure, let me just reach into my pocket and pull out a plot device I've never seen before. The audacity of this frozen gorilla to suddenly develop critical thinking skills at the one moment I needed him to stay stupid. I kept my composure through what might be the greatest acting performance of any lifetime. Obviously, I don't carry it around. It's locked in my territory, guarded by 1,000 evil ghosts. Much safer than keeping it on me. But if you insist, I'll go grab it and bring it back. Then I turned around and started walking away. Casually, calmly, like a boss who has important boss things to do and definitely isn't fleeing for his life. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Every single step felt like it lasted an hour. Cold sweat was literally dripping down my back. I was counting footsteps like a prisoner counting days. 10 steps, 12, 15. Maybe he bought it. Maybe I'm actually going to pull this off. You're not the evil god king. Who are you? Welp. Credit where it's due. The Frost Demon King finally connected all the dots. Too many contradictions, no key to show, sketchy answers, and the general vibe of, this person is absolutely lying about everything. Took him a while, but he got there. The good news? He figured it out about 15 steps too late. I was already sprinting down that tunnel like my life depended on it, which it absolutely did. 600,000 HP worth of angry frozen demon was behind me, and I was running with the athletic ability of a lord whose primary exercise was clicking buttons and ordering skeletons around. I didn't get the key, but I got something almost as valuable, information. There are 2 keys, 2 bosses, 1 mysterious demon god, and whatever's behind that middle tunnel probably requires both keys to access. The treasure map led here for a reason, and now I knew the shape of the puzzle even if I didn't have all the pieces yet. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm the first person in gaming history to attempt to scam a diamond boss through conversation alone. Failed at the last step, sure, but I got closer than anyone had any right to. If there was an achievement for most audacious lie told to a monster, I'd have it framed on my wall. I came stumbling out of that tunnel gasping for air like a fish that just learned what land is. The Frost Demon King hadn't chased me. Apparently these bosses are chained to their territories like guard dogs on leashes. Honestly, disappointing. If he'd followed me out alone, without his 1,000 ice gorillas backing him up, I could have killed him right there and taken the key. 1 diamond boss by itself? Manageable. 1 diamond boss plus an army of tier 6 frozen apes? That's a math problem with no good answers. Shinbei took one look at my sweaty, disheveled state and somehow guessed perfectly. Don't tell me, another diamond boss? You're annoyingly accurate sometimes. I told them everything. The Frost Demon King, the key, the demon god they both serve, my brilliant con that worked right up until the moment it spectacularly didn't. Shunbei's response was to slowly raise his thumb like he was witnessing a miracle. Boss, you tried to scam a diamond boss. Out of a quest item. Through conversation. I don't have words. You are genuinely the most insane person I have ever met, and I worship you. I sighed. Almost worked too. One more stupid question from that ice cube, and I would have walked out with a free key. The failure stung because I knew the play. If I'd gotten the Frost King's key, I could have gone straight to the evil God King, shown him a real key as proof, and talked him out of his two keys, 0 battles, maximum style points. But the window closed and it wasn't opening again. Fine. Plan B it is. Plan B is always violence. But first, the middle tunnel. I needed to know what those keys actually unlocked before committing to a war against 2 diamond bosses simultaneously. This tunnel was narrower than the others. Barely room for 3 people side by side in the tightest spots, and it stretched on forever. 30 full minutes of walking through cramped darkness with nothing but my footsteps and paranoia for company. No demons, no monsters, no ambushes. Just silence, which was somehow worse. Then the path opened into an empty clearing with a stone platform in the center. No enemies anywhere. Just this tall structure, 3 or 4 stories high with stairs carved into it, sitting there like a monument waiting for a visitor. I climbed to the top and found exactly one thing. A treasure chest. Beautiful, ornate, clearly containing something incredible. And it had 2 keyholes. One glowing red, one glowing ice blue. Mystery solved. The sheepskin map's treasure was sitting right in front of me, locked behind 2 keys held by 2 diamond bosses who each commanded 1,000 elite demons. The goblin merchant's ultimate prize wasn't free. It was protected by approximately the most ridiculous security system I'd ever encountered. 2 endgame bosses as glorified padlock guardians. Whoever designed this was either a genius or deeply sadistic. Probably both. I headed back and laid everything out for the team. Li Bingchu connected the dots immediately. So the treasure is the chest, and we need both keys, which means we need both bosses dead. Qin Bei was practically vibrating with excitement. Boss, nobody in the entire world has killed a diamond boss yet. If we pull this off, that's a world first. Double first kill. We'd be legends. He had a point I hadn't considered. World first diamond boss kills would come with massive system rewards on top of whatever was in that chest. 2 birds, 1 army of skeletons. But I had to be honest with them. If we do this, your armies are getting wrecked. Serious casualties. Possibly total wipeout for some of you. Qin Bei waved his hand like I'd just warned him about mild weather. Soldiers die, soldiers get replaced. Who cares? Li Bingchu nodded. Risk and reward go together. That's how this works. Lin Mingming quietly added. Whatever you all decide, I'm in. These lunatics were actually ready to charge 2 diamond bosses in a canyon full of demons because I asked them to. Either I'd assembled the bravest team in Lord's era or the dumbest. Probably both. Definitely both. Then we start with the Frost Demon King. I picked him first for a reason. I'd already been inside his territory, I knew the layout, and frankly, I owed that oversized popsicle a receipt for almost catching me. 15 minutes later, we marched into the frozen valley with every troop we had. The Frost Demon King spotted me immediately, and his massive brow furrowed with recognition and irritation. You dare return? I shrugged with the casual energy of someone ordering coffee. I just went home to get my key. Why wouldn't I come back? The giant ice ape actually paused. He hadn't expected that answer. For one beautiful second, confusion flickered across his frozen face. Then where is it? I grinned. Oh, that was a lie too. You idiot. I snapped my fingers. 400 flame mages poured out of the tunnel behind me like a river of destruction, staffs raised, spells already charging. The air filled with the sound of 400 simultaneous incantations and the orange glow of enough firepower to melt a glacier. The Frost Demon King's expression shifted from confusion to realization to fury in about half a second. But half a second was all my mages needed. Hundreds of exploding fireballs screamed across the frozen valley like a wall of miniature suns, aimed directly at 600,000 HP worth of very angry, very confused ice demon who had just been told. Actually, I lied about everything. And also here's 400 fireballs. The look on his face? Absolutely worth almost dying for earlier. Some moments in life are just chef's kiss. And watching a diamond boss realize he got played twice by the same guy wearing a Halloween mask is one of them. 400 fireballs hit the Frost Demon King simultaneously, and I was already mentally calculating the damage when the smoke cleared and revealed the most disappointing number I'd seen all week. Less than 40,000. On a 600,000 HP boss. That's like throwing a bucket of water at a house fire and congratulating yourself. The sneaky bastard had activated frost armor before my fireballs even landed. My surprise attack surprised exactly nobody. Apparently diamond bosses have reflexes faster than my flame mages can chant. Good to know. Absolutely infuriating, but good to know. I ripped off the deceiver's mask and went back to being plain old human me. No more tricks. No more disguises. Just raw, honest violence from here on out. Ugsar, surround him. My skeleton king charged forward with 1,000 heavy skeleton knights fanning out like a net of armored death. They encircled the frost demon king in seconds. Beautiful formation. Textbook execution. Then the frost demon king pulled out an ice hammer roughly the size of a small car and smashed the ground so hard it created a crater, instantly deleting 7 or 8 of my knights in one swing. Just casually erasing Tier 5 heavy cavalry like he was swatting mosquitoes at a barbecue. Ugsar didn't hesitate, ripped out his rib, summoned the bone giant, and threw himself into the fight. But even my bone giant looked outclassed. The Frost King hammered it backward with a single blow, chunks of bone flying everywhere. This wasn't a fight between equals. This was a bulldozer versus a shopping cart. Then the real problem arrived. 1,000 frost giant demons came stampeding out of their caves, roaring and charging straight at us. 1,000 Tier 6 monsters on top of a diamond boss. The canyon turned into absolute chaos. Shinbei stepped up immediately. Boss, me and Li Bingchu will handle the ads, brave kid. Stupid brave, but brave. I knew they couldn't hold 1,000 Tier 6 demons alone, so I sent Kalen with several hundred skeleton knights as backup. Even then, the math was ugly. Without Ugsar's bone throne buff, it took 4 or 5 skeleton knights to kill one frost giant demon. We'd need 4 or 5,000 knights to match their numbers evenly, and we didn't have anywhere close to that many to spare. Translation, my friends were buying me time with their army's lives, and the clock was ticking loudly. Back at the main event, things were actually progressing. My flame mages kept bombarding the Frost King non-stop, while Ugsar's buffed skeleton knights swarmed him from every angle. 5 minutes in, his health dropped from 600,000 to 450,000. Not fast enough for comfort, but the bleeding was real. Then Artoria decided to go full hero mode. She raised her holy sword and activated both chivalric spirit and glory shield simultaneously, buffing every human faction unit on the field and giving all nearby troops a defensive boost. Even my skeleton knights got tougher. For a few glorious seconds, we were actually pushing the Frost King back. He did not appreciate that. The frozen gorilla gripped his hammer with both hands, slammed it into the earth, and screamed something about ice hell that I really wish he hadn't meant literally. A wave of absolute zero cold exploded outward in every direction. Every skeleton knight within range froze solid. Instant ice sculptures, hundreds of them, locked in mid-charge with their lances raised. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't devastating. Then the Frost King stomped the ground, and every single ice sculpture shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Over 100 skeleton knights, gone in 2 seconds. 1 skill, 100 kills. Diamond bosses don't play fair, and this one was playing the least fair of anyone I'd ever fought. The Frost Hell skill kept spreading outward, threatening to freeze my entire backline, including my precious flame mages. If that ice wave reached them, this fight was over. We'd lose our entire damage output and become target practice for a very angry ice monster. Artoria moved without hesitation. She pointed her sword at the Frost King and unleashed Holy Seal, a burst of sacred light that slammed into him and forcibly interrupted his skill. The expanding ice stopped dead in its tracks. My flame mages survived. The battle continued, but saving everyone came at a price. The Frost King turned his full rage on Artoria. He charged her with his ice hammer glowing with freezing energy and swung with everything he had. Frost Strike. The impact shattered her glory shield like glass. The shield absorbed most of the damage, but the freezing effect still hit her. Thick ice crawled across her entire body, slowing her movement by 70%. She was practically a statue, and the Frost King was already winding up his next swing. My strongest hero, the woman who'd carried me through every major battle since day one, was standing in front of a diamond boss covered in ice with no shield and no way to dodge. The next hit would be catastrophic. Meanwhile, on the other front, I could hear Chun Bei's orcs roaring and Li Bingchu's troops clashing with frost giant demons. They were holding, barely, but every second I spent not killing this boss was a second their armies got smaller. Kalen was burning through dark magic, keeping the demons at bay, but Tier 6 monsters don't go down easy, and there were just so many of them. Everything was balanced on a knife's edge. My skeleton knights were getting pulverized. Artoria was frozen and vulnerable. My friends' armies were slowly being ground down. The Frost King still had over 400,000 HP. And my only real damage source, 400 flame mages, was one bad moment away from getting frozen into uselessness. But you know what? I've been in worse spots. Probably. Maybe. Actually, no. This might genuinely be the worst spot I've ever been in across 2 entire lifetimes. But panic has never solved a single problem for me, and it wasn't about to start now. Time to get creative. Or desperate. At this point, the difference between the two was basically non-existent. Artoria was frozen, slowed to a crawl, about to eat a second ice hammer to the face, and then she pulled out a move I'd completely forgotten she had. The green dragon armor wasn't just fancy clothing. It was a diamond-tier strategic treasure with its own skill, Green Dragon's Roar. She let it rip, and a dragon's scream exploded across the entire battlefield. Every enemy who heard it got hit with a debuff. The Frost Demon King lost 10% of his stats, which was annoying for him, but survivable. His Frost Giant demons, though, they lost 25%. A quarter of their power, gone, just from hearing a loud noise. Suddenly Chun Bei and Li Bingchu's troops weren't getting steamrolled quite as badly. One skill, 2 battlefields saved. Artoria, you beautiful golden warrior, I could kiss your armored forehead. But she wasn't done. Before the Frost King could recover from his confusion, she raised her holy sword toward the sky and activated something I'd never seen before. A brand new skill she'd unlocked at level 40. Imperial Light Destruction Slash. A massive golden sword phantom materialized in the sky above us. Not a regular sword, a building-sized, glowing, divine weapon made of pure concentrated, "You're about to have a very bad day" energy. It hung there for one dramatic heartbeat, then plunged straight through the Frost Demon King's body like a golden lightning bolt. Minus 31,456. Over 30,000 damage in a single hit. On a boss with 1550 defense. This skill ignores defense entirely. 500% skill damage with zero regard for how much armor you're wearing. You could be wrapped in a tank and Artoria would still carve through you like warm cheese. And it left a golden sword mark on his forehead that boosted all of Artoria's subsequent damage by 50% for 5 minutes. She'd basically stamped him with a "kick me" sign that said, "Hit me 50% harder, please." The Frost King's health started hemorrhaging. 400,000. 350. 300. 250. My flame mages were pumping fireballs non-stop. Artoria was hacking away with boosted damage, and Ugsar's skeleton knights were chipping in from every angle. The big ice gorilla was melting, figuratively and almost literally. Then Chun Bei's panicked voice cut through the chaos. "Boss, we're about to collapse over here." I turned and my stomach dropped. Kalen's skeleton knight reinforcements had been whittled down from several hundred to maybe a few dozen. Chun Bei's orc army was battered. Li Bingchu's troops were in shambles. The frost giant demons were still coming. And despite the 25% debuff, 1,000 Tier 6 monsters is still 1,000 Tier 6 monsters. Kalen, my squishy mage hero who has no business being in melee range, was literally standing on the front line, tanking hits from ice giants while using life drain to heal herself faster than they could kill her. She was essentially playing the world's most dangerous game of, can I absorb health faster than you can crush me, and winning by the thinnest possible margin. Absolute lunatic. I loved her for it. "Hold on," I shouted. 20% left. Chun Bei looked at the Frost King's health bar, gritted his teeth so hard I could hear it, and nodded. Got it. That kid had promised he'd fight until his last soldier dropped, and he meant every word. Say what you want about Chun Bei, the boy is many things, but a quitter isn't one of them. The Frost King's health hit 100,000, and he raised his hammer to cast Frost Hell again, the same devastating area freeze that had killed 100 of my knights earlier. If that went off a second time, we were finished. My flame mages would freeze, our damage would stop, and 600,000 HP of Ice Demon would have all the time in the world to smash what was left of us into frozen confetti. But I'd been watching for exactly this moment. Artoria, Holy Seal. Now, Sacred light slammed into the Frost King mid-cast, and his skill fizzled out like a candle in a hurricane. Interrupted. Cancelled. Denied. You don't get a second Frost Hell today, Snowman. Not on my watch. For 100 Flame, mages fired another volley. Artoria carved into him with her boosted damage. His health crashed below 50,000. He was staggering, desperate, throwing wild swings that hit nothing but air and dead skeletons. Then Ugsar stepped forward. My Bone King's eye sockets blazed with green fire, and his bone magic blade turned pitch black. He'd learned a new skill during all that power leveling I'd invested in. Bone Demon King Slash. 230% skill damage plus true damage equal to 8% of the target's lost health. I'd been saving this skill for exactly this moment. The Frost King had lost 550,000 health points. 8% of that was 44,000 points of pure true damage that ignores everything. Armor, buffs, prayers, whatever. Add the base skill damage on top, and you're looking at well over 50,000 total. More than enough to delete what was left of his health bar. Go to hell, Ugsar roared. Actually roared, with genuine emotion on his skull face, which shouldn't be possible, but was terrifying anyway, and swung his black blade in one devastating arc that carved clean through the Frost Demon King's torso. Minus 54,465. The number floated up in blood red like a death sentence written in the sky. The Frost King's health hit zero so fast the game probably needed a moment to process it. His enormous frozen body swayed, cracked, and crashed to the ground with a sound like an avalanche hitting a library. Done. Dead. Finished. A diamond boss, the first one anyone had killed in the entire world, face down in his own frozen valley, slain by a skeleton wielding a sword made from his own rib cage. Poetry. Violent, beautiful, bone-flavored poetry. Chen Bei, Li Bingqiu, and Lin Mingming all turned to stare at the fallen giant. Relief washed across their battered, exhausted faces. Their armies were decimated, their resources spent, their heroes running on fumes, but we'd won. World's first diamond boss kill. Ours. Mine. Written in the history books of Lord's era forever. One key down. One to go. And somewhere in this canyon, a treasure chest was waiting for me to come collect what was rightfully mine. The second that frozen gorilla hit the ground, the world announcement fired off, and every single player on the planet got to read my name again. At this point, I should just rent permanent advertising space on that notification bar. Lin Yuan did something insane again. More news at 11. The first kill rewards were absolutely disgusting in the best way possible. 25 random platinum strategic treasure chests, 2,000 high-grade resource packs, 1,500 equipment enhancement stones, and 30 hero recruitment tokens. Quick napkin math. The platinum chests alone were worth tens of millions. Each platinum treasure sells for at least 6 or 700,000. So 25 of them? We're talking serious wealth. Throw in the resources, stones, and recruitment tokens, and this single kill was worth more than most lords would earn in months. But all of that was pocket change compared to the special reward. Timestone Monument. I opened my inventory and read the description, and I swear my heart skipped 2 beats. Place it in your territory, and all building construction times get cut in half. All troop refresh timers get cut in half. 50%. Gone. Just like that. Do you understand what that means? Buildings that take 2 weeks now take 1. Troops that refresh weekly now refresh every 3.5 days. I was already the fastest developing lord in the game, and this thing just strapped a rocket to my back and lit the fuse. While every other lord is sitting around waiting for their city lord's mansion to finish upgrading, mine would be done in half the time, pumping out higher-tier buildings and recruiting troops at double the normal rate. The gap between me and everyone else wasn't just going to grow. It was going to become an uncrossable canyon. I was standing there having a private religious experience with my new treasure when Chun Bei's whiny voice dragged me back to reality. Boss, if you don't come help us, we're literally going to die over here. Oh, right. The 1,000 frost giant demons were still very much alive and very much beating the living daylights out of my friends. I'd gotten so distracted by the time monument that I'd temporarily forgotten an entire active battlefield was happening 50 meters away. Not my finest leadership moment. I apologized, genuinely, because they'd been getting mauled while I was drooling over loot descriptions, and sent Artoria and Ugsar crashing into the remaining frost giants like two bowling balls into a field of pins. Without their king buffing them, and with the green dragon roar debuff still active, these ice demons were just leaderless meat waiting to be processed. My flame mages cleaned up whatever survived the hero assault. 10 minutes, and every last frost giant was a cooling corpse on the frozen ground. Chunbei grinned through what looked like exhaustion mixed with trauma. See? Everything gets easy once the boss shows up. Your army is almost extinct and you're still cracking jokes, I said. But honestly, I respected it. The kid had held the line while his troops got shredded, never once asking to retreat. That loyalty was worth more than any treasure chest. Then I did something that clearly surprised everyone. I opened trade windows with all three of them and started distributing the first kill rewards. Chunbei blinked. Boss? What are you doing? Dividing loot. What does it look like? I turned to Lin Mingming first. She'd contributed the least combat casualties, so I needed to address the elephant in the room before anyone's feelings got bruised. Mingming, Chunbei, and Li Bingqiu lost way more troops than you did, so I'm giving them bigger shares. That okay? She didn't even hesitate. Of course. They deserve more. I would have given them my portion even if you hadn't asked. Sweetest person in this entire game. Zero greed. Zero drama. Just pure wholesome support class energy. Chunbei and Li Bingqiu each got 10 platinum treasure chests, 600 enhancement stones, and 10 hero tokens. Lin Mingming got 5 chests, 300 stones, and 5 tokens. Even her smaller share was enough to make any regular lord faint with jealousy. Chunbei did the math and his eyes went wide. Wait, boss, you gave everything away. What about your share? I waved him off. Don't need it. I'm keeping the time monument. That's worth more than all the rest combined. I showed them the description. Chunbei's eyes nearly popped out of his skull, and he actually started drooling. That's a literal cheat code. You'll be light years ahead of every player alive. Li Bingqiu nodded approvingly. The development gap this creates is going to be massive. Nobody complained. Nobody felt cheated. They understood the deal. Without me, none of them would have gotten a single coin from this fight. I carried the damage. I called the strategy. I almost scammed a diamond boss through sheer audacity. The time monument was my payment, and it was worth every fireball and every skeleton that died today. With the rewards settled, I turned toward the Frost Demon King's massive frozen corpse still lying in a heap on the ground. First kill rewards were the system's bonus. But the actual boss loot, whatever this 600,000 HP ice monster had been hoarding, was a separate prize entirely. Diamond bosses are the rarest, most powerful enemies anyone had faced in Lord's era so far. Whatever dropped from this thing was going to be special. I walked over to the body, rubbing my hands together like a kid approaching a Christmas tree. Chunbei, Li Bingqiu, and Lin Mingming trailed behind me, equally curious, equally exhausted, and equally aware that whatever came next could reshape all of our futures. One diamond boss down, one to go. One key obtained. One still locked behind the evil God King and his army of Tier 6 nightmare creatures. And somewhere in the middle of this canyon, a treasure chest was waiting with 2 keyholes and the promise of something valuable enough that a goblin merchant considered it his most prized possession. But first, let's see what Santa Frost left us. I looted that frozen corpse like a kid tearing open birthday presents. 2 diamond tier strategic treasures, an ice key, and some special crafting material. When Chunbei rushed over asking what I found, I shrugged and said, nothing much, just 2 diamond treasures. The look on his face could have powered a small city. 2 diamond treasures and you say nothing much? How high are your standards, boss? Okay, fine. I was showing off a little. Diamond treasures are incredible, but a man's gotta maintain his cool image, right? First treasure, Frost Giant Axe. Diamond quality. Massive strength and attack bonuses, 35% crit damage boost, and a passive that adds ice damage to every hit plus a 20% slow effect for 3 seconds. Second treasure, Extreme Frost Armor. Diamond quality. Huge defense boost, damage reduction, ice resistance, and an active skill called Extreme Frost Domain that slows every enemy within 100 meters, 15% attack speed reduction, and 25% movement speed reduction for 15 whole minutes. Both solid pieces, though neither quite matched my green dragon armor with its 50% magic immunity. That thing remains the crown jewel of my collection. I slapped the extreme frost armor onto Ugsar immediately. My Bone King's biggest weakness was his mediocre defense, and this armor plugged that hole perfectly. He went from, hits hard but kinda squishy, to, hits hard and good luck killing him. Beautiful upgrade. Then I traded the Frost Giant Axe to Chinbei. He froze. Ironic, given the weapon's theme, and tried to refuse. Boss, this is too valuable. I can't accept. Stop. Never say that again. I looked him dead in the eyes. I'm giving it to you because it fits your hero best. If it fit Li Bingshu or Lin Mingming better, they'd have it instead. We're a team. The team gets stronger, everyone benefits. End of discussion, and I meant every word. This was never a solo game. My power has limits. Building a strong team around me isn't generosity, it's strategy. The Frost Giant Axe was perfect for his orc chieftain, whose biggest flaw was being slower than a grandma on a Sunday stroll. Orcs hit like trucks, but move like trucks too. Great power, terrible mobility. But with this axe slowing enemies by 20% every swing, suddenly his target can't run away anymore. Can't kite him, can't escape him, can't do anything except stand there and get chopped into orc-sized pieces. His weakness just became someone else's problem. Chinbei grabbed the axe with misty eyes and that stupidly loyal expression of his. Boss, whatever you need, whenever you need it. I'll charge in first even if I'm the last man standing. You barely have any men left standing, I said. Maybe recover first before making dramatic promises. He wasn't wrong about the casualties though. This battle had been a bloodbath. Chinbei and Li Bingshu both lost roughly 80% of their armies. My skeleton knight force was essentially extinct. Spearmen, regular knights, dark elf swordsmen, nearly all gone. The only unit I'd managed to keep pristine was my 400 flame mages, because I protect those women with my life. They're the backbone of everything I do. Every other troop exists partly just to stand between enemies and my mages. As long as those 400 spell-casting angels of destruction survive, I can rebuild everything else. Li Bingshu asked the obvious question. So are we going after the evil God King next? With what army? I laughed, but it was the tired kind of laugh. Look at us. We're running on fumes. Those tier 6 evil ghosts would steamroll our remaining troops before the boss even bothered standing up. We'd get wiped before the real fight started. I held up the ice blue frost key and twirled it between my fingers. No rush. We already have one key. The treasure chest needs both keys to open, which means nobody else can beat us to it. The initiative is completely in our hands. Besides, I was absolutely confident that nobody else in the entire game could kill a diamond boss right now. The game has a rule. Maximum 10 lords can fight a boss simultaneously. No human wave cheese tactics allowed. So even if some massive alliance gathered their best players, they'd still need 10 lords with genuinely elite armies to have a prayer against a level 50 diamond boss surrounded by 1,000 tier 6 minions. The only scenario where someone other than me pulls it off would be the top 10 strongest lords in all of China teaming up. But those people belong to different factions who'd rather eat glass than cooperate. Getting them in the same room without a fight breaking out would be harder than the actual boss battle. So the smart play was obvious. Go home, rebuild my skeleton army, let everyone's troops recover, and come back in a few days to finish the job. The evil God King wasn't going anywhere. That treasure chest wasn't going anywhere. And my ice key was sitting safely in my inventory where absolutely nobody could touch it. I'd already accomplished something historic today. World's first diamond boss kill. A timestone monument that would cut all my build times and troop refreshes in half. 2 diamond tier treasures distributed to strengthen my team. An ice key that put me halfway to unlocking whatever insane reward the Goblin Merchant's treasure map was hiding. Not bad for a day that started with, "Hey, want to check out this canyon?" We limped out of the frozen valley like survivors of the world's most expensive bar fight. Bruised, broke, and missing most of our friends, but carrying loot that would make every lord on the planet green with envy. Chinbei was already naming his new axe. Li Bingshu was quietly calculating the value of her share. Lin Mingming was smiling contentedly with her smaller, but still incredibly generous portion. And I was mentally planning the comeback tour. Rest up, rebuild, return. Then we'd crack open that evil God King like a piñata and collect the second key. After that, 1 treasure chest, 2 keyholes, and whatever secret was valuable enough that a cunning goblin merchant kept it as his most prized possession. The Frost Demon King thought he was untouchable. Now he's a frozen corpse being looted by a 20-something with a skeleton army and zero chill. The Evil God King was next on the menu. He just didn't know it yet. We limped home like soldiers returning from the worst vacation ever. The Evil God King rematch got scheduled for 7 days out. That's when everyone's troop recruitment refreshes, and my friends desperately needed fresh bodies to replace the mountains of dead ones. Coincidentally, 8 days from now was also when the game hits its 1-month anniversary, and every human on Earth gets sucked into Lord's era permanently. Fun times ahead. I've already lived through that apocalypse once, and honestly, I was looking forward to round 2. This time I'm not the clueless kid getting played by his own uncle. This time I'm the guy with 3 S-rank heroes and a grudge. What I didn't know was that a sneaky little cockroach named Feng Chong had been hiding in the bushes outside the canyon, watching us leave. The second we were gone, he called his boss. Wang Hu. Remember that scarred idiot? The one I obliterated in Skeleton Forest? The one who called my uncle and accidentally discovered he'd been picking fights with the boss's nephew? Yeah, that Wang Hu. Apparently 50 million yuan from Lin Tianke had transformed him from terrified loser into terrified loser with a budget. He was furious when Feng Chong suggested maybe they should leave me alone. Leave him alone? Lin boss gave me 50 million to deal with this kid. If 100 people aren't enough, I'll hire 1,000. I'll make them regret ever stepping into that canyon. Classic Wang Hu. The man has the strategic depth of a puddle but the stubbornness of a cockroach that survived 3 nuclear winters. Feng Chong had overheard us planning to return in 7 days, and Wang Hu's tiny brain immediately started cooking up ambush schemes. He even wanted to explore the canyon himself to figure out what we were after. Go ahead, buddy. Walk into a canyon full of Tier 6 demons and a diamond boss without me there to carry you. I'm sure that'll go great. Meanwhile, I had work to do. First order of business, slap that time stone monument into my territory. The instant it activated, every construction timer on my screen got cut in half. Buildings that needed 14 days? 7. Troop refreshes that took a week? 3.5 days. I watched the numbers change and felt like a man who'd been running through mud his entire life and just discovered pavement. My City Lord's mansion would hit level 6 in under 10 days now, unlocking Griffin Cliff and Tier 6 Griffins, one of the few flying units available to the human faction this early. Eventually, I'd upgrade them to Royal Griffins, which rival Tier 7 stats. Most lords don't have any air force right now. I was about to have one that could carpet bomb their territories while they stood on the ground shaking their fists at the sky. But before I could enjoy my shiny new buildings, I needed to solve a more immediate problem. I was basically out of soldiers. The Frost Demon King fight had chewed through my skeleton army like a wood chipper. If I wanted any chance against the Evil God King and his 1,000 Tier 6 evil ghosts, I needed bodies. Lots of bodies. An unreasonable number of bodies. So I invented what I'm calling the money printer monster grinding method. Step 1. Hire 100 players at 5,000 gold per day each. Step 2. Split them into 2 groups. Group A finds the densest monster spawn points across the map. Group B runs into those spawn points, aggroes every monster in sight, and drags the entire screaming horde back to me like the world's most dangerous dog walkers. Step 3. I kill everything. Step 4. Convert the corpses into skeletons. Step 5. Repeat until I have an army that blots out the sun. 100 employees at 5,000 daily? That's 500,000 gold per day. Over 7 days, that's 3.5 million gold burned purely on hiring people to bring me things to murder. Any financial advisor would have a stroke looking at my expense reports. But the efficiency gain was absolutely worth it. Instead of wasting hours wandering around looking for monsters, I had a conveyor belt of pre-aggroed creatures delivered directly to my doorstep. Kill speed tripled. Maybe more. I briefly considered an even lazier approach, just buying monster corpses from other players and converting those. Skip the fighting entirely, go full capitalist. Unfortunately, corpses despawn after a few minutes, so that brilliant shortcut was dead on arrival. Pun intended. For 7 straight days, my life was a loop. Wake up, meet the monster delivery crew, massacre everything they brought me, convert the bodies, repeat. It was like working at the world's grimmest factory, except instead of making cars I was making skeletons, and instead of a lunch break I had more skeletons. By day 7, I stood on a hill overlooking my creation and felt something between pride and mild horror. 80,000 Tier 1 skeletons stretched out before me in perfect formation, row after row after row, extending so far into the distance I literally couldn't see the end. 80,000. A sea of bone and empty eye sockets, standing motionless, waiting for orders. If anyone had stumbled across this scene without context, they would have assumed they'd wandered into the afterlife's waiting room. I pulled out the skull of the Bone King and activated its fusion ability. Black magic circles ignited beneath thousands of skeletons simultaneously, and the conversion process began. 80,000 Tier 1 skeletons going into the grinder, coming out the other side as Tier 5 heavy skeleton knights, armored, mounted, and ready to ruin someone's entire week. The math was beautiful. 16 skeletons fuse into one heavy skeleton knight. 80,000 divided by 16 equals 5,000 brand new Tier 5 cavalry units. 5,000. My previous record was about 1,000, and that had felt impressive. This was 5 times that. Under Ugsar's Bone Throne buff, 20% boost to attack, defense, speed, plus true damage. These 5,000 knights would hit harder than most armies twice their size. 7 days of grinding. 3.5 million gold in hiring costs. Countless monsters sacrificed to the skeleton conversion machine, all leading to this moment. 5,000 heavy skeleton knights standing in formation, ready to march back into that canyon and introduce the evil God King to the concept of overwhelming force. One who wanted to ambush me with hired thugs? Adorable. I was coming back with an army that could darken the horizon. The evil God King thought his 1,000 evil ghosts made him untouchable? I had 5,000 skeleton knights with true damage, 400 flame mages, 10 green dragons, 3 S-rank heroes, and the kind of reckless confidence that only comes from having already died once and finding it moderately inconvenient. 7 days down. Rematch time. Let's go open that treasure chest. Watching 80,000 skeletons fuse together is like watching the world's most violent game of musical chairs. Round 1. 80,000 Tier 1 boneheads merged into 40,000 Tier 2 skeleton warriors. Round 2. 40,000 became 20,000 heavy skeleton warriors. Round 3. 20,000 became 10,000 skeleton knights. Round 4. 10,000 became 5,000 heavy skeleton knights. Each round, half the skeletons disappeared, and the survivors got meaner, tougher, and significantly more terrifying. It was like a skeleton talent show where the losers got eaten and the winners absorbed their power. Beautiful, horrifying, and mathematically satisfying. But I wasn't done. 5,000 Tier 5 knights looked impressive on paper, but I'd already learned the hard way that Tier 5 units get absolutely embarrassed by Tier 6 enemies. Against the frost giant demons, my old skeleton knights had been about as effective as throwing pillows at a brick wall. If I was marching back into that canyon to fight the evil God King and his 1,000 Tier 6 evil ghosts, I needed soldiers that could actually trade blows without instantly dying. So I pushed the fusion one more level. The skull of the Bone King activated again, and 5,000 heavy skeleton knights compressed down into 2,500 dark skeleton knights, Tier 6. Their soul fire eyes shifted from green to pitch black. Wisps of dark fog curled around their armor like each one had its own personal thunderstorm. They looked like death had a military, and these were its special forces. I tried pushing even further. Tier 7 would have been incredible, but the skull of the Bone King finally said, "Nah, you're not high enough level for that." Fair enough. If it had no limits, I could have turned 256 basic skeletons into a single Tier 9 skeleton emperor on day 1 of the game. That would have been hilarious for me and absolutely miserable for literally everyone else on the planet. Some restrictions exist for good reason. 2,500 Tier 6 Dark Skeleton Knights. Under Ugsar's Bone Throne buff, 20% to all stats plus true damage. These bad boys were going to hit like freight trains dipped in nightmare fuel. The evil God King had no idea what was coming for him, and that thought made me unreasonably happy. I marched my army to the canyon where my team was already waiting. Shunbei spotted my new knights instantly, and his jaw hit the floor so hard it probably left a dent. "Boss, those look very different from last time." Dark Skeleton Knights. Tier 6. He physically recoiled. Tier 6? That many? How is that fair? It wasn't fair. That was the whole point. While my friends had spent 7 days slowly rebuilding and recovering about half their forces, I'd hired 100 monster hunting employees, massacred everything within a 50-mile radius, converted 80,000 corpses into skeletons, and fused them all the way up to Tier 6. Same time frame, wildly different results. Special treasures plus unlimited money plus zero shame equals armies that make grown men cry. Oh, and thanks to the Timestone Monument cutting my trooper fresh in half, I'd recruited 2 full rounds of units from my territory instead of 1. My flame mage count had jumped from 400 to 700, nearly double the firepower. The evil god king was about to learn what 700 simultaneous fireballs feels like, and spoiler alert, it feels like dying. We entered the canyon and retraced our steps to the 3-way fork. Left tunnel, evil ghost cavern. The moment I stepped inside that red-soaked hellhole, the evil god king sensed us immediately. His burning whip cracked the air, and those cruel eyes locked onto me like targeting lasers. Human, who gave you the courage to set foot in my domain? I didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't deliver a speech or exchange witty banter. We were past the diplomacy phase. I'd already tried the talking route with his neighbor, and that ended with me sprinting down a tunnel covered in cold sweat. This time the approach was simpler. Who gave me courage? I did. I raised my hand and dropped it like a guillotine blade. Blast him. 700 flame mages. 700. Chanted in unison, and the tunnel behind me lit up orange like the inside of a furnace. 700 exploding fireballs materialized, each one a miniature sun of concentrated destruction, and launched toward the evil god king in a formation that looked exactly like a meteor shower designed by someone who really hated demons. The fireballs hit him like a tidal wave of pure fury. Explosions stacked on explosions. Fire swallowed fire. The shockwave was so intense it actually pushed his massive body backwards several steps. A creature with 500,000 HP getting physically shoved by the impact of raw magical firepower. Over 50,000 damage. 1 volley. 1 second. The evil god king had lost 10% of his health before the fight even properly started. His response was about what you'd expect from an angry demon god who just got sucker punched by 700 fireballs. Kill them all. Every cave in the cavern vomited evil ghosts. Hundreds of them. Tier 6 nightmares with wolf heads and horse hooves, pouring out like the world's worst waterfall, surrounding us from every direction in a tidal wave of horns and fangs and murderous red eyes. This was going to be the fight of our lives. A diamond boss with resurrection abilities, backed by over 1,000 Tier 6 demons, in an enclosed cavern where retreat wasn't really an option. Last time we fought a diamond boss, my entire skeleton army got destroyed and my friends lost 80% of their troops. This time the stakes were even higher. But this time, I had 2,500 Tier 6 Dark Skeleton Knights buffed by Ugsar's Bone Throne. 700 flame mages ready to turn this cavern into a crematorium. Artoria at level 40 with a skill that ignores defense. Ugsar with a finishing move that scales off missing health. 10 green dragons who'd been sitting around doing nothing for days and were probably bored out of their minds. The evil ghost charged. My Dark Skeleton Knights charged back. And somewhere in the middle of that collision, the evil god king raised his flaming whip and prepared for war. Let's see who runs out of soldiers first, big guy. Because I brought a lot of soldiers. And mine come back from the dead. Remember that terrifying evil god king who cracked a flaming whip at my feet and told me to get lost? Yeah, I came back with 2,500 Tier 6 Dark Skeleton Knights and 700 flame mages. His face when he saw my army pour through that tunnel was the second best thing that happened to me all week. Who gave you the courage to step into my domain? He roared, all dramatic and intimidating. Me. I gave me the courage. Now die. I sent Ugsar charging in with the full skeleton cavalry, and what followed was less of a battle and more of a public humiliation. See, my Dark Skeleton Knights weren't just regular Tier 6 units. They had a 50% stat advantage over everything else at the same tier. 30% from the Skull of the Bone King, 20% from Ugsar's Bone Throne passive. One of my knights stabbed an evil ghost and deleted a third of its health in a single thrust. 2 more knights followed up, and the ghost was dead before it could even swing back. Multiply that by 2,500 knights versus 1,000 ghosts. It wasn't a fight, it was a math problem, and the ghosts were on the wrong side of the equation. Shinbei watched from behind and couldn't help himself. Boss, your skeletons are the same tier as those demons, so why are they winning so easily? Is this some hidden unit? Nope. Just really good buffs. Meanwhile, Artoria and Kalen were double-teaming the evil God King himself. His flaming whip was genuinely nasty. Anything below tier 6 died instantly if it touched them, and even Artoria lost a quarter of her health from one hit before she popped her shield. But with 700 flame mages raining fireballs non-stop, his health bar was melting like a candle in a microwave. 400,000. 300. 200. Shinbei leaned back and laughed. I was expecting the fight of our lives, and instead, I'm basically spectating. Li Bingshu nodded. Significantly easier than the Frost Demon King. At 150,000 HP, the evil God King finally played his trump card. He raised both arms, screamed something about destruction, and a massive bronze gate erupted from the ground behind him. The evil ghost gate. Pure darkness behind it, like staring into hell's front door. Every ghost we'd killed started walking back out through that gate, fully revived and ready for round 2. An infinite respawn machine for tier 6 demons. Terrifying ability. Would have been a nightmare for anyone who wasn't prepared. But I'd fused 2,500 tier 6 knights specifically because I'd known about this skill from my past life. The revived ghosts couldn't break through my skeleton wall fast enough to matter, and meanwhile, I had 700 mages still hammering the boss. Ignore the ghosts. Everything on the boss. Now, 2 more volleys of fireballs. Artoria carving chunks with her boosted damage. The evil God King's health crashed through 50,000, and I called Ugsar back from the front line. My Bone King raised his black blade, soul fire blazing in his skull, and unleashed Bone Demon King slash. 230% skill damage plus 8% of the boss's lost health as true damage. The evil God King had lost 450,000 HP at that point. 8% of that. 36,000 points of unavoidable, defense-ignoring death, plus Ugsar's base damage on top. The blade carved through the evil God King's torso, and the damage number that floated up might as well have been a tombstone inscription. His remaining health evaporated. His massive body toppled forward and crashed into the red earth with a sound like thunder punching a building. The bronze gate flickered and dissolved. The remaining ghosts lost their respawn ticket and suddenly looked a lot less confident. Cleaning them up was basically janitorial work at that point. Shinbei was grinning so wide his face might split. Li Bingshu looked relieved. Lin Mingming was quietly smiling. And I was already walking toward the corpse because somewhere on that oversized demon was a fire-red key with my name on it, and a treasure chest in the middle tunnel that was about to finally open. 2 diamond bosses down. 2 keys collected. 0 casualties I actually cared about. The evil God King spent centuries building his demon army in this canyon, thinking he was untouchable, and I dismantled his entire operation in under 15 minutes while my friends sat in the back eating popcorn. This wasn't even a boss fight. This was an eviction notice delivered by 2,500 angry skeletons and a man with absolutely no patience left. The evil God King dropped 2 diamond treasures, both accessories this time. The demon pendant gave attack and crit rate plus an active skill called Demon's Grip that grabs an enemy for 3 seconds while draining 15,000 HP per second. Basically a chokehold from hell. The Hell Ring boosted intelligence and magic attack with 10% spell penetration, plus it could summon a Hell Gate that continuously spawns demons based on the user's hero level. Free minions on demand? Yes, please. I kept both. Nobody argued. Shinbei said he'd feel greedy taking another diamond piece. Li Bingshu shrugged, and Lin Mingming quietly asked if she could have the evil God King's heart for some quest she was working on. I handed it over without thinking twice. I'm not the kind of guy who hoards crafting materials I don't need while my teammates are standing right there with puppy eyes. Demon Pendant went straight to Artoria. She already had Holy Binding for crowd control, and stacking Demon's Grip on top meant she could lock down any target for an absolutely disgusting amount of time while it slowly died. Hell Ring went to Kalen, my only magic-focused hero who actually benefited from intelligence stats. Both heroes jumped up another power level, and I stood there admiring my roster like a proud father watching his kids graduate. 3 S-rank heroes, all stacked with diamond gear. Somewhere out there, other lords were celebrating their first gold-tier accessory, and here I was handing out diamonds like Halloween candy. But enough window shopping. 2 keys in my pocket. 1 treasure chest waiting. Time to see what 2 diamond bosses had been guarding. We marched down the middle tunnel. 30 minutes of narrow, dark, suspenseful walking that felt like the world's longest hallway to Christmas morning. The chest was exactly where I'd left it, on top of the stone platform. Nobody had touched it. Nobody else even knew it existed. I climbed those stairs with my heart beating harder than it had during either boss fight. Opening it now, I tried to sound casual. Failed completely. My hands were practically shaking as I slid both keys into their matching keyholes. Ice blue left, fire red right, and turned them simultaneously. Click, click. The lid popped open, and all 4 of us leaned forward like kids peering into a magic trick. Inside was an egg. 1 single, pitch-black egg covered in creepy magical symbols, radiating an energy so dark and evil it made the air feel heavy. That was it. That was the treasure. 2 diamond bosses, 2,000 dead demons, weeks of preparation, and the grand prize was a spooky breakfast item. Chunbei's face was a masterpiece of confusion. The treasure is an EGG, Li Bingchu stared blankly. What in the actual? Lin Mingming stepped closer and whispered, it's alive. My elf priest can sense life energy inside it. Elves have natural sensitivity to living things, so if her priest said something was alive in there, it was alive in there. But none of them understood what they were looking at. I did.